Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order for USD 348 Board of Education. Just as a quick announcement before we get to other announcements, we've had some internet issues today, so I was asked to relay that if for some reason the live stream breaks up, that it's still being recorded and it will be archived and uploaded available tomorrow. I know sometimes, especially for recognitions, people go back and screen grab those parts, so if you don't see it tonight, don't worry, it'll be there tomorrow in case the streaming itself is interrupted. It's still being recorded as a backup. At this time, I would invite you to rise for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. May I have an approval of the agenda, please? Second. Phil has moved and Susan has seconded to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Organizational items. Any announcements from building leadership for parent, family, and community engagement opportunities? I think we have a taker.
Yes, I don't like to end with this crowd. Gary, you sure you don't want to?
No, you can have this one. Well, we went to the state basketball tournament, right? And so prior to the game, Gary and I discussed, because they send you out this sportsmanship information where they really want you to be on your best behavior, and they try to use this carrot of getting a sportsmanship award. And so Gary and I, we sat down with Kelly and we went back and forth, and I'm like, what do we do here? I'm like, I can't guarantee that our kids aren't going to chant airball or something. It always happens, and then I turn around and I try to get quiet down. So I'd made a couple other calls to like administrators in the league. I'm like, what do you do here? Like, what have you done? And I talked to one particular, Jeff Hines over at Paley. He said, we've done it both ways. We've gone and we've got a certificate and a plaque for sportsmanship, and we've also just let our kids let loose and have fun because it's the experience, right? So I finally twisted Gary's arm a little bit. I'm like, man, let's just let our kids go have fun. No air balls. Let's try to mitigate what they do during free throws. What do you think about bounce pass? Let it go. What do you think about which way, that way? Let it go. Okay. So, and I was a little bit concerned because I didn't really clear it through Mr. Dodge, but I said, you know what, we'll ask for forgiveness later. So then we go to the game, and our kids were good. We had a nice student section. But then over spring break, we received our rubrics, right? They send you rubrics, right, with your scores, okay? And I wanted to share our scores tonight with everybody in attendance. Ballot 1, you can get a total of 24. We've received 22 out of 24, okay? Pretty outstanding. Ballot number 2, 24 out of 24, okay? Ballot 3 or rubric 3, a 23 out of 24. Some of the highlights on one of them, a few spontaneous negative reactions from the crowd, but short-lived. I blame that on Kelly's parents, the Hefners, sitting front and center, right? Her parents were there. If you've ever met them, I blame that on them. Some of the key comments, I think, where was it, Gary? Number 11, player number 11, you'll have to look that up on the website. He'll remain anonymous. Argued a traveling call with officiating, so we got dinged for that. However, I like to argue that number 25 on our team repeatedly hands the ball to the official in a very workmanlike manner every time, so I applaud him for that. But this is when you know you're really like the epitome of administration. In terms of the cheering section, student body helped each other. They're effective. The man with the quiet poster in front of the student section, I can't read what was under it, and he also addressed 2 individuals that were yelling during the game. So, unbeknownst, when we had, right, that we were going to go and we're just like, we're not going to get the sportsmanship award. We came back victorious.
Long live Baldwin City.
So we will be receiving a sportsmanship certificate, right?
For the record, the guy holding the sign was Mr. Brickman.
That would be me.
One side of it did say quiet. I think the other side of the sign may have said make some noise or something.
I mean, yeah, we kind of, yeah, we'll talk about that later. But at least, yeah, so I just thought I would share with that. But it is good. It's indicative of the crowd that we had, right? They participated, but they were well behaved. And so kudos to our student body and all that traveled there, our parents as well, because they're a part of that. So, yeah.
Before he walks away, I want to say it's really cool to see the student participation. The junior high kids that were also a part of that experience, they were absorbed into it. They weren't. The whole culture there was representing Baldwin, and what Brent Kelly and what Gary did to make that experience something that they will remember. It's fantastic. So it's well deserved. It's something that the kids and administration took part in. The teachers that were there was an awesome experience. So, yeah. Well done.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any other announcements from building principals?
Kind of hard to top that, so I'm
Yeah, that's tough to follow. In the area of some other announcements, I want to remind that the Baldwin Education Foundation is having a really exciting event this Friday at the Lumberyard Arts Center from 4 to 6. It's come and go. Everyone is invited. It is a teacher feature and donor appreciation. So it's going to be a great event. Our culinary students are providing the food. Our music students are providing, at all ages, are providing singing and instrumental playing. So some good atmosphere. So we have a lot of the student groups involved in that, and it will be very nice. Again, that's from 4 to 6 this Friday. And celebrating teacher excellence with the grants that they received from Baldwin Education Foundation. Speaking of grants, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Kara Lee. She is one of the people who had applied for the Be Well grants. If you guys have seen Be Well around town, she had applied for a grant for roller skates at the primary center. She ended up getting double what she asked for because the quality of her grant was so good that they actually gave more than what they had indicated. So that's another example of just the many ways that teachers are going above and beyond just the normal call of duty. They're seeking out those extra opportunities, and we're lucky to have them.
We also have a family that would help donate to make a quarter for the skates as well. We're going to talk to supply to them, not like
double coolness. That's so awesome because that program has been really cool, but it's a rental thing every year and it's very expensive. And so that's going to be an exciting addition to just to own those skates and have that as a standing thing. I'm going to give props. It's going to embarrass him, but I'm going to give props to Kelly Neufeld. Part of the atmosphere of leading up to state was the music that was going on. Board worked really hard to get a new sound system in there for over several years and having to delay it for more important projects that had come along, but that's finally where we want it to be. But then we had the awesome playlist that he volunteered to do, and it was fun. So again, no one was asked to do that. It was just, hey, this'll add to the environment. And I got a lot of feedback from both parents and kids like, yeah, maybe some of us old people felt the bass pumping. I feel like that's a good thing. But it was a lot of fun. And for our student section, oh my gosh, it was a blast. So thank you for doing that. I know you're not happy that I brought it up. But another thing, two more things. I want to remind staff about the Nook. This is a local business. An email went out before spring break informing the staff of a promotional code that is available to all staff. That's an ongoing teacher discount, which is a really cool thing from a local business, but want to make sure we announce that. That might have gotten lost in the post-spring or pre-spring break excitement and shuffle. So I want to thank Nikki and the Nook for that incentive program, discount program for our teachers. And then lastly, speaking of teachers, Kansas Teacher of the Year banquet is coming up on Sunday, the 26th, which is this Sunday. We are being represented, I see her back there. At the elementary level, we are being represented by Casey Wright, and at the secondary level, Danielle Balsman, who are two absolute rock stars, and they're going to represent the district very well. So wanted to make sure that was on folks' radar as well. The Kansas Teacher of the Year program is a very prestigious and time-consuming endeavor. And again, to have teachers who are willing to go through all the extra stuff to make all that happen is really, really awesome. So we are cheering all of you on this Sunday as that is attended. All right. Does anybody else have anything?
Well, I do. In the spirit of celebration, we have one of our board members was accepted for the Leadership for Tomorrow cohort that KASB does. And Chris Perry will be represented on that cohort for a year. And it's like 5 two-day workshops, and they build strategies for improving achievement and efficacy and boardsmanship. And it's a great program KASB offers. So.
Thank you for doing that, because I had it written under interlocal notes. I was going to make you talk about it, but this is much smoother. Sorry, yeah. Chris, congratulations, because that's, again, that reflects really well on our district, and thank you for being willing to take the extra thing on. Awesome. Thank you, Susan. Anybody else? Okay, let's proceed with the awesomeness. I need a vote to approve the consent agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Chris has moved and Kelly has seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. I'm now moving on to recognition. We are very, very thrilled when we have a big chunk of our agenda that has to do with recognitions. And there's a lot to celebrate tonight at all ages. So thank you all for taking the time to come. Kay, remind me, if I stand more over this way and guide people this way, then that, I think, gets it. But we're going to start off with the Intermediate Center Math Champion. Mr. Wallsmith, you don't have to come up here if you don't want to, but if you want to come up here and talk a little bit about what the Math Bee looked like. Yes, and let's invite Paige and Ivy here. There you are. Hi, girls.
I want to watch you, nothing else.
Hello. So Mr. Wallsmith is going to explain what it is, and then we're going to present you an official certificate and clap for you, okay? We won't make you do math on the spot. Okay.
So
Mr. Wallsmith?
these two are our last two standing from our Math Bee, our champion Paige and our runner-up Ivy. It's voluntary. It starts with a round in the classroom where they answer a series of questions. That's all on paper. And then our math resource teacher, she grades them all and she ranks them all. And then I think the top 20 from that round got to go into the second round. This was outside the classroom. And so again, it's a paper competition. Those got graded. Then we were supposed to pick the top 5, but we had a tie, so we had the top 6. And they got to compete a couple weeks ago. And it was really, I haven't told them how close. It was so very close. We had to go over several times to make sure we got the math right ourselves before they announced our final champion and runner-up. So well done. We probably had about 30 or 40 kids that participated all together. And again, these were the two that were picked at the very end. So well done. Well-deserved honor.
Awesome. That's so great. Paige Smossel, this is for you. She is the Intermediate Center Math Bee champion. And the Math Bee runner-up goes to Ivy Perry.
And she is modeling, if you turn around, modeling this T-shirt we got for our new
Oh, super cool. Math Bee buzzin'. Oh, I love it. That's so great. Well, the USD 348 Board of Education celebrates excellence in all school activities. So on this day, March 20th, 2023, the entire board would like to celebrate and congratulate you guys. Good job. All right. Next, we have, the Kid Wind Challenge. If all of those folks involved with that would like to come up, including their faculty sponsors, that would be great. Leo's not scared. He's coming up. Come on up, Leo. I won't bite. Here's Casey. All right. Okay. So not everybody's here, I know, but we're still going to make sure and recognize everybody who was a part of this team. So can you tell everybody what place you got at the Kid Win Challenge? Do you remember? You got 3rd place. That's a big deal, right? Against 8th graders. That's even a bigger deal. Okay, so would either of the staff just like to briefly, what is the Kid Win Challenge for anybody who doesn't know? In
Sure.
a nutshell.
So nationally, there's a program where kids can compete. They're just basically engineering windmills, and so they have, it's fourfold. One, they have to create enough joules. Two, they have to do a quiz, and they have an instant challenge. And then the final thing is, drawing a blank on. Say that one more time. Yeah, they had to go in before the judges, so we weren't allowed to go in there, so they had to go in and answer questions, and so.
I felt like this was an opportunity for you to shine.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I bet you were very informative when they asked questions, huh?
Yeah. This team actually generated more power than any of the teams that showed up that day. So they created some really cool stuff.
Very cool. That's like being a scientist.
I think it was like 35.60, 38. It was 35.6.
You guys are scientists. I love the attention to detail. Okay, well, this is awesome. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say that all the names, that way everybody who's a part of the team is important, whether they could be here tonight, right? You know, so we're going to say everybody's name, and then as your name is read, you come get your certificate, but we'll make sure that the other kids get theirs too. Andrew Growers. There you go. Marley Bulmer. Case Hornberger. Okay, so here are the people who aren't here, and I'll get to you, Leo. Dominic Butter, Bailey Simpson, Leo Heron, and then also our faculty sponsors, Casey Wright, Rachel Fisher, Justin Hoffman. Sorry, this is stuck together. I don't want to do that thing where you lick your finger. I feel like that's frowned upon now. Justin Hoffman, and Faith Peterson was also a staff sponsor, and then Drew Ising, who's been a part of the Kid Wind stuff from the very beginning and has really brought a lot of that to our district. So now we're going to clap for you. Is that okay? All right. The USD 348 Board of Education supports and promotes excellence in all school activities, including third place finishes at Kid Wind challenges. And so on this day, March 20th, 2023, we recognize, celebrate, and congratulate your efforts. Well done. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you guys for being here. All right. KMEA All-State Musicians. If this is possible, I would like to ask all ages, whether it's elementary through high school, to go ahead and come on up. And let's have elementary starting here. And then we'll have high school on that end. And we will do all of the KMEA stuff together. Arwen, could I have you stand here? There we go. Yes, you be my, there we go. Perfect. And again, we know not everybody could be here, and that's okay. Ms. Jacobson, would you like to say a little bit, because you're a music teacher?
I would love to. KMEA is the state organization for music educators, and I can't speak as much, at least knowledgeably, about the junior high and high school other than they have to go through a very, very rigorous audition process in order to be selected. They audition and they sight read, and that gets them into district, and then if their scores are high enough, then they're put into state. As for the elementary kiddos, they have to audition as well, and there were over 930 auditions this year for a 160-person choir, and our little 4A district had the second most highest number of kids represented in that choir behind a 5A district that's right next door to where we perform.
That was the part I was hoping you would mention.
Yes. So we had 8, and then there was a school from Andover that had 9. And the general consensus, I had parents that were texting me that they said that the people around them were looking at the program and going, wow, Baldwin's a really small district, but they have so many kids here. And so it's just fabulous that we had that many children make it out of that many auditions. So that means 8 out of 9 kids got told no, and we had 8 make the choir. So
it's a big deal, and it's a lot of extra work outside of your regular school responsibilities, and that's amazing. And it's also amazing the way you know, part of the reason why all of this is, you're seeing all this all the way through is the collaboration that we have from the elementary all the way through junior high and high school is, and this is not just vocal music, this is also band, because I know there's times, I mean, Stuart is just as talented a vocalist. I mean, he knows his stuff in that department as well. And there's a lot, there's coverage, there's collaboration, there's teamwork, and you're seeing how all of that plays together for the benefit of kiddos. So good job, you guys. I'm going to read off all the names. For the elementary choir participant, I'm going to read that off first. Rhonda Bench. Jacob Goodwin. Arwen Marsh. Chloe McLaughlin. She's not here. Oakley Schoendaler. Kinsley Scott. Mara Thomas. Emma Watkins. And that's the end of the elementary choir. For the treble honor choir participants, this goes to Phyla Gordon, Arwen Marsh again, so double duty, Claire Watkins, Hunter Harding, and, oh, I'm sorry, Hunter was the middle level choir. We'll make sure they get all their certificates. Okay, moving on to high school. Carly Armbruster made the KMEA treble choir very competitive for sopranos. Like, you can be a really good soprano and not make it. So she did very, very well. And then also we have Michael Morris, the multi-talented Michael Morris. You also played in the jazz band at KMEA. We talked about this last month, but the jazz band was selected as one of 6 schools, right, from the state to be on demonstration. And it wasn't like you walk in the room and you do your little ditty and you leave. It's like 30-minute set, legit. So you were having all that, and then on top of it, Michael Morris for KMEA and mixed choirs. So there you are. All right, so we're going to congratulate you all at the same time, okay? USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities, including all the extra work that goes into KMEA. And so on this day, March 20th, 2023, the board congratulates each of you. We admire your achievements, and we celebrate you today. Congratulations. Congratulations. All right. That would be great.
This is my shameless plug that if you want to hear all the 4th through 12th grade choir members sing together, April 3rd is a Monday. It's our choral festival. Come hear us all sing. Yeah. There. Thank you.
All right, we're going to kind of skip around a little bit and do, we're going to start with girls wrestling. If you are a BHS girls wrestler, if you would please come up. And Coach Harris, I know I saw you somewhere. If you want to come up too, feel free to share anything you would like to share, kind of insights on the season, you know, whatever you'd like to share about the team and the girls.
I can introduce the kids. This is the girls wrestling team, which was started 4 years ago. This team has won 2 state trophies in those 4 years. And they've done a great job, worked very hard, and had a great season. Had 10 state qualifiers, which ties our school record of 10, and that's out of 14 weight classes. So it was a really fun season. Perla was a pretty cool story because she just came out for wrestling, brand new to the country, brand new to the school, brand new to the sport, comes out and tries wrestling. Her host sister, Brianna, brought her to the, she didn't come out at first, but then she brought her to bring a friend to practice on Friday practice. So she did it. She goes, okay, I'll try this. And then she worked really hard, and then ended up, she was a 7 seed at regionals and beat the 2nd, 4th, and 5th seed to qualify for state. And so I had a really awesome reaction, and so I videoed it, and I posted it, and it got 600 retweets and shares and likes from all these people. And I go, Perla, Mike Zadek liked that tweet. She goes, who's Mike Zadek? He's an Olympic wrestler. Come on. But so it's pretty cool. But so this is Maddie Hargett, and she is the only 4-time state qualifier and 3-time state placer in school history. Placed 4th at state. Canyon Burtis, also a first-year wrestler who qualified for state regional champion. Morgan Bass was a 6th place state finisher, regional champion. Ellie Pittman was a regional runner-up and 2-time state qualifier now. Brianna Mitchell placed 6th at state and regional runner-up. And Willow Du Bois, a regional runner-up and state qualifier. Perla, state qualifier. We have a couple not here, Nora. Audrey Darnell is on a college visit in Montana right now. She was the only first ever state finalist for girls wrestling and 100 match winner, and broke 10 school records. And also her sister Allie broke a school record as well. So it's a fun season. Coaching them all. Coaching girls wrestling is the highest of highs and lowest of lows, and there's tears every day, and whether they're happy tears or angry tears or sad tears, or but they support each other so much through all of it, and it was a lot of fun coaching. I'm very proud of them. Third place at state.
Awesome. All right. Perla, remind me how to pronounce your last name. Is it Backford?
However you want to say it.
No, you tell me how to say it. Perla, I want to say it right. Perla?
Just say That's fine.
The way you really say it, we can't do it very well.
Oh, we can't do it.
You can try, but
Okay.
like if she says it right, it's hard to.
Okay. Perla, I'm going to say Blackford. That'll be my attempt. Okay. All right. Morgan Base. Canyon Burtis. I said the Darnell, Allie Darnell, Audrey Darnell, Willow Du Bois, Maddie Hargett, Brianna Mitchell, Ellie Pittman, and then Nora Fraser. So the Baldwin City Board of Education supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. On this day, March 20th, 2023, we want to congratulate you all on your team third place finish. We're proud of you. Congratulations. All right. All right, and now we're going to recognize boys wrestling. So gentlemen, if you would like to come forward. All right, Mr. Harris?
Our boys, we had 9 state qualifiers on the boys side, and I thought, I was proud of having 19 qualifiers, a pretty high number. And so I was looking and counted it up, and there was only 2 schools that had more than us overall, like boys and girls overall qualifiers. It's Garden City and Dodge City, 2 very big schools. So we're the 3rd most state qualifiers as a whole program for the state. That's pretty cool. We hosted regionals, had a really awesome, fun day in our gym, and hosted regionals. And so under our qualifiers, we have 9 of these guys that placed, some more that were really close. Braden Hirschman, freshman, qualifying, big deal. You were also a 7th seed, weren't you? Yeah, he pinned some people to get his way in that were seated higher than him. Dylan Williams placed 4th at regionals. Connor Murray wrestled at state on Saturday and had shoulder surgery on Monday. So he wrestled this year with an injury and had to really be careful about things, and did an awesome job, showing a lot of toughness and guts this year. And made the state, and we'll match a state. And Jaden Westgate, now a 2-time state qualifier, right? Jack Harvey, he's a state champion, also has the muddiest vehicle out in the parking lot out there, as you've noticed. So he's our 11th state champion ever in school history, and he's a 2-time placer now, 2-time finalist, and another year back. Jesse Hopper, 2-time state qualifier, hurt his ankle. He's a finalist at regionals. I'm going to say it would have been a state qualifier, state placer, because he would have been, but he hurt his ankle in the finals of regionals and wasn't able to wrestle in the state tournament. Unfortunately, senior year, but had a great season. Aiden Johnson, state qualifier, Jaden Michael, state qualifier, and I think everybody, right? No, we're missing Ethan Williams, a freshman, state qualifier. So, yep, Dylan's brother.
Awesome. So I'm going to pass these out. Again, this is for being a state wrestling qualifier. Braden Hirschman, Jesse Hopper, Aiden Johnson, Jaden Michael. Thank you. You held the door for me when I was coming in. Thank you. Connor Murray. You're welcome. Dylan Williams. If I give you Ethan's, will you give it to him? Did you promise you'll give it to him?
Maybe.
Okay. There are witnesses. This has been recorded. And Jaden Westgate. All right. I'm going to give you your certificate in a minute. So as Coach Harris already said, here are our state qualifiers. I'm giving yours, even though you were alphabetically first, I'm giving yours last because you were the state champion. And we know teams are all about the work we do every day. Clearly, you guys give your bodies. We're really proud of you. We're also proud to have a state champion in the house. That's a lot of outside work, but it's also everything that you guys are helping to put in every day to practice. So USD 348 Board of Education supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. including state wrestling. So on this day, March 20th, 2023, we want to congratulate each of you. We're happy for you with your success. And many of you have another year. For those of you who don't, thank you for what you have contributed for all these years to this program, because it helps the next group that comes along. Congratulations. Okay. All right, Mr. Harris, you better stay put, because on top of all of that, Coach of the Year Sportsmanship Award goes to Mr. Harris. So kind of cool that this happened on a night we weren't expecting necessarily the other sportsmanship award, but of all the awards that we received, and I'm a big fan of all of them, as someone who has also had her own challenges with questionable calls, so I don't want to be a hypocrite. Also, there's a difference in, questionable call, but then where is that line of also holding good sportsmanship and modeling all of that? So Coach Harris was actually named, I grabbed the wrong one. He was actually named as the Coach of the Year with the Sportsmanship Award. So, Mr. Harris, the USD Board of Education supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. So on this day, March 20th, 2023, we wish to congratulate you as being Coach of the Year for the Sportsmanship Award, as well as all of the success for your wrestling program. Thank you.
You better behave yourself today. I just way to shut me up. I feel bad for the state award.
Well, there's passionate advocacy.
Yeah.
Okay, don't get me going.
Sometimes I kindly discuss rural
Kindly
situations.
discuss, yes. Good. Okay, and then for our last individual recognition, I'm going to call Carly Neufeld up. She's being recognized tonight for the Douglas County Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge. And before we talk a little bit more about that, are you comfortable just briefly sharing? You don't have to go through the whole play-by-play, but tell what your project was.
I took my business, Faithful Designs, to the Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge in Lawrence, where I competed against a couple other businesses, and I had to give an elevator pitch, a formal business presentation, a trade show, and I also had to submit an executive summary.
Wonderful. And you received a scholarship as a result of this too, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So really big deal. So Carly, didn't just do this, she also got first place. And in retrospect, I realized this, I think maybe the next day, that was also the same day that she competed and did all the stuff she just mentioned. It was the same day as senior night, wasn't it, for basketball?
Oh, yeah, it was.
That's a lot of juice. That's a lot of juice in one day. And to be on your game in that way, like in both areas, and then still come away with first place, that's
Thank
huge.
you.
That's like real life managing stuff in all the compartments at the same time. So I wanted to make note of that. The Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. So on this day, March 20th, 2023, the Board of Education recognizes and congratulates Carly Neufeld as the Douglas County Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge Champion.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Carly. All right, now we have the Baldwin Built Employee of the Month Award. Okay.
All right. So, we had, Scott Patterson was our February Employee of the Month, and tonight we're excited to announce this month's, March's Employee of the Month. So at this time, our winner is constantly going above and beyond. They are a trustworthy colleague. They keep their word and are a master at making time for everyone and never take any credit for themselves. Our winner has been observed caring for the food needs of students, helping staff members through significant difficulties, and most often just lending a listening ear. They have the ability to listen without trying to solve the problem. Please allow me to welcome or to introduce to you your March Baldwin Belt Employee of the Month, Michelle. I know is going to be a very popular fixture for the next month when your dog is not here. So thank you for all you do for our students and our staff.
Also, along with that, the Baldwin Education Foundation is a co-sponsor of this initiative, and enclosed is a cash slightly personal / professional note, I remember the time that Michelle was social worker of both the primary center and the intermediate center. Before we were in a position that we could make sure there were social workers in each building, this lady was doing all of that in both places. And as we know, the needs have shifted. It's important that we have those resources in both buildings. But regardless of that, we didn't have this program then. But I don't want you to think that people forgot about the time that you spent going back and forth and being all places. It's a really hard job. So thank you for everything that you do. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you. You bet.
All right, it is letter writing season at the junior high. So this portion of the agenda, which is called Celebrating USD 348 Student Voices, was really put there to symbolize the importance. It kind of came from the assignments that would happen from the junior high, where they send us letters of advocacy, which is an important skill to have, and I'm so glad they're doing it. We have received so many letters that when it comes to this portion of the agenda, and because I also am not going to repeat names, for confidentiality purposes, what I do is I read all the letters. They're all here. Megan also uploaded them and emailed, so they're there for your review. But I simply summarize the overall idea of the content so that the kid knows it wasn't just a letter that got sent and nobody looked at it. But I'm not going to mention names. I'm just going to summarize by category. Letter 1 was actually to the rec that actually got sent to us by mistake. Thank you, Megan, for getting it to the rec. We had 5 letters that came in addressing the junior high, both junior high football field situation and high school. Some of the things of note were with the junior high field, because it's also used as a practice field. The number of holes that are there can easily break a bone, I wrote. And these letters were very well organized because the students would identify what the issue is, whether it was lack of bathrooms, lack of concessions, opportunities, holes in the grass, and then they would pivot, so they were taught well, to here's my suggested solution, which was turf, which was if we could have our own concessions, then we could do more of our own fundraising. I thought that was really interesting that a junior high kiddo pointed that out. We're not able to do that way with how we currently have it at Baker. Another student even went so far to say that we would save money with busing high school kids. This one struck me because it was from a junior high kid who was probably thinking ahead, but also being empathetic to an experience. Really get to play at home. And I thought that was an interesting thing from the perspective of a junior high student. So there were 5 of those types of letters. We had one letter that was specific to soccer, a soccer field needing an upgrade, particularly when it came to the focus was about lights, and the main point of that was that so many parents couldn't make it in time for games because they had to be so early in the afternoon because they were still at work. In several of these letters, more bleachers, more seating. There's not enough room for everybody. It's hard for older people to get around. That was brought up in the junior high football, mentioning that older people oftentimes had to bring their own lawn chairs, and that was worrisome with that hill. Let's see. One letter was about the high school needs to be updated. 2 letters were about later school start times. They also had supporting research, which I thought was really interesting, that just in terms of not only physical health of recommended hours of sleep, but as that applies to the adolescent body, and then also in relation to one letter specifically pointed out mental health as well. So there are 2 letters about that. I feel like the visitor, I already said that. And then, there were 2 letters regarding requested updates to the locker rooms. One of those in particular had cost research with flooring specifically associated. So the quality of the letters were really, really good. We've heard a lot of these things before, so there wasn't really anything new other than probably the later school start time in terms of a topic that we hear about a lot from students. But I do want to compliment their teachers. It's like I said before, it's a great skill to have. We appreciate getting those letters, and it's important to hear from our students. So thank you all to those who sent letters and for the adults in their lives who guided that.
And I just want to add, in terms of the mechanics of the writing, the letters were well written. You could hear voice in there. It was respectful. It was to the point. As you mentioned, it stated facts. I was very impressed with the mechanics that were involved, the voice that was utilized as well.
Awesome. Way to go, junior high. Speaking of, we're now that's a perfect segue for our educational program highlight. We have 3 gentlemen from the junior high. We have Eric Toot, we have Mr. Bailey, and we have Cameron Schneider. I'm sorry, I was just working with your dad, so I didn't mean to omit your first name. That was unfair.
He
Eric
makes us
Bailey
call him Mr. Bailey too.
and Cameron Schneider. We're excited to listen to the educational program highlight you have for us tonight.
All right. Well,
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. Well, mine would be writing about 100 letters about dress code. So.
No?
Was there one about dress code this time? Did I miss that?
Maybe that one was written to Mr. Bond.
Oh, yeah, because he had his own separate stack.
No, sorry. If I put this cut in, I guess.
Mr. Toot and I are just the eye broccoli. Mr. Bailey's going to be talking.
Ready?
Yeah.
Ready to go?
Yeah.
So we set out at the start of the school year during grant season to come together and collaborate and put together a program which we call Making Choices with Econocurrency. It was a collaborative study between 6th, 7th, and 8th grade social studies departments. And as it says there, made possible with BEF grant funds. There's no way we could have done what we were doing this year without the funds from the Baldwin Education Foundation. That was huge. Yes. So the goal of this program is to give and grow an economics perspective for Baldwin Junior High School students throughout the school year. The idea, well, it kind of says it here. It's one of the 6 competencies for middle school social studies. Choices have consequences is the first standard, and it ties into the existing Bulldog Buck program. So the 6 competencies idea there with economics, if you look at the curriculum materials that we have, which are very good materials, they don't really address economics as a subject outside of, I'll use 6th grade for an example. We definitely talk about the Silk Road when we talk about ancient China, but we don't really dive into economics. And so sometimes when we're talking about things like that, we need just a little bit more to have for a conversation piece. And so that's kind of where we're going with that. Choices have consequences is that first standard, and that's really, as far as the standards are concerned, really where this falls as well as anything. And then we already had a program in place that Mr. Bland brought into place as a principal for the Bulldog Buck program, and then Mr. Curry has really taken off with as far as providing some new opportunities as far as the Bulldog Buck program. And so what we were trying to do is figure out a way to tie into that. And we can do that. So the basic idea of the program is to pay students for going to school and want them to think about it like this is their job. This is what they're doing. And so they're buying into it a little bit. So basically 10 econos a week or 2 econos per day is what they would earn.
Econos is the name of our fictional currency, just so we're all on the same page on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then we have
things that, there'd be bonuses for extra work. I don't know, personally, I haven't done a lot of those, but the example I was thinking of is 5 econos for a perfect score on a test. Just to say you went above and beyond, maybe with your studying or whatever, and so here's a little bit of a reward for that. And then there are deductions as well. So for lack of preparation, if you're missing a pencil, you don't have a charged Chromebook, maybe not following the 4 pillars, doing something that is disruptive to the overall learning environment, then we take some of the econos away from the students. So ideally, the deductions are low enough that it's not, that everybody's still going to earn something. Everybody's still, at the end of the day, going to have something. But high enough that they will notice a difference and start to think about what good choices that they could make. Back to the choices have consequences. So we managed the system with something called class equity. We had prior to, and I have it up there, this was something that Drew Ising brought to us. We had, before Drew brought this to us, we had a pretty fancy spreadsheet or two that we were.
I made a very crude spreadsheet. Like, this looks cool. I can change the cell color to purple and make it look like a check. And I know a little bit from computer applications in 8th grade how to make some money disappear at the bottom end of that cell. So I've made that up. I felt pretty good about myself. And then Drew Ising came in and said, "Hey, try this." I'm like, man, that's why they pay you big money, and that's why us 3 dummies are teaching social studies. So we use class equity. It's a way to manage, our economy, essentially. Each kid made their own account. I'm taking over.
Yep.
Is it okay? Yep. So each kid creates their own account. They're able to do so on their Chromebook. They're able to bookmark that on a program that we use called Clever. So they're able to access that whenever they want. And then we, as teachers, have an administrator accounts where we can see all of our hours at the same time. And let's say that Mr. Dodge shows up to class and he did not charge his Chromebook the night before and he is not prepared. I can go into 3rd hour and I find Mr. Dodge on my roster and I can deduct him 1 econo. And it makes a really cool noise, like coins falling out onto the ground when you get deducted money. So it gets all the kids thinking like, oh my gosh, someone's losing money. And you don't have to tell them like someone's losing money, because they hear it and they're like, oh, I better shape up. So, but we manage our salaries there. We put in bonuses there. We fine people for breaking the 4 pillars, not coming to class prepared. And then we have a class store that we manage through class equity. That's kind of the big carrot at the end of the stick that we'll get into. I think that's on one of the next slides, on how the kids can spend their earnings for doing their job. And there's the basic overview of what class equity looks like. So on the left side, you can see all of the different class periods that we have. This is a screenshot of your day?
Yeah.
Okay, so screenshot of his day. Gives the class overview there in the middle, and you can see that student number 1, they have 72.5 econos. Student number 2 has 70, and that's where we manage all of that stuff. And if you click on each hour, it gives you a lot more options to pick from. You can specify what you're fining a student for, so you can give them a reason why. Why did I lose 2 econos? Oh, well, I didn't turn that homework assignment in, or I didn't charge my Chromebook, or I was being disruptive in class. Or why did I get a 5 econo bonus? Oh, I got a perfect score on a test, or I went above and beyond in this way in the classroom. So it's a way for us to manage it. It's a lot easier than going into 100 different spreadsheets a day. We can have this one website pulled up on our desktop and bookmarked, and we can work it from there.
So general observations, definitely some student excitement when making and picking up purchases. So the different items that we have in the store, the range, candy's been a pretty popular option for junior high students, as you may imagine. But I Mr. Toot has been like, I think, the hero here. He's brought in so much of his incredible, I mean,
I do the shopping is what he's trying to say.
well, we all brought in vintage sports items, which we put in there.
Okay.
But Mr. Toot's collection is much more impressive than what I had to offer. I will say that.
I have 2 daughters who could care less, so I'm getting at the age where I'm trying to downsize my man cave.
So it's kind of fun. There's some novelty to it with the vintage sports items, but we also kind of recognize that we all grew up collecting cards, and that's not everybody's thing. And so, we talked to the students and tried to figure out some other things that they might be interested in doing. And one of the popular things was hair scrunchies. So Mr. Toot's shopping, he went and found those hair scrunchies, and those went, I think, pretty well.
The lady asked me, why on earth are you buying hair scrunchies?
My wig collection.
Really, back to it, the economic talking points, that's an observation. Being able to say things like supply and demand, talking about inflation. We have changed the prices intentionally with some things. And we were upfront with them saying, hey, at some point during the year, you're going to see the prices fluctuate a little bit. We talked about goods and services. Exchange rate, that's where it ties in really to the Bulldog Buck program. And what Mr. Curry's done with that. And so they have been able to buy the Bulldog Bucks, and that rate has gone up and down. We've not had it at a constant rate. And then just the overall idea of trade. We talked about choices have consequences, and again, the Bulldog Buck enthusiasm. That's been really neat because there've been a lot of students that are buying into, now having a place to sit at lunch. And that's really not an econo thing that we set up. That's the Bulldog Buck program, but the exchange rate allows them to go into that. On the negative side, keeping track can be very tedious and time consuming. That has been, I think, something that we've all experienced. When somebody doesn't have a pencil or whatever, and it's like we're taking a test, you don't want to take the time to go and mess with the computer at that moment. You just want to be able to move on. And that part has been a little bit more tedious, and then remembering to go back and do that. So that would be one of the observations. I don't know if either of you have anything to add.
Our less motivated students also haven't had the buy-in that we probably had hoped. It's just the carrots at the end. We've had two stores already, and we have 2 more, but they're living in the now, so they don't really. It's not had the, in my opinion, it hasn't had the positive effect I was hoping it would have on the students that aren't quite as motivated, I guess is the best way to say that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah. Yep. Our thanks here, obviously the Baldwin Education Foundation. Without the grant, there's no way we could afford anything other than Mr. Toot's donations. Mr. Bland has been patient and supportive of this whole idea and letting us think about it. Mr. Curry's done great things with the Bulldog Buck program. Obviously, Mr. Ising helped us with the class equity site, and then the students who have had ideas to say, hey, this is what we'd like to see, and buying in, and also being patient with us, saying, hey, wait, we're not going to do the store when we said we were. We're going to switch it to this day because it's not going to work for this reason or another. So.
Anyone have questions or comments? I'm completely geeked out, so somebody go first.
I just think it's really cool, and the fact that it's so engaging, I'd be interested in seeing, attendance has been an issue across the country. It's been lower than it is normally, and just to see that 2 weeks, see if that attendance rate went up too. Even though you said some of the lower motivated kids aren't. really motivated. I don't know, I just think it'd be an interesting thing to see.
Anybody else? Okay, well, listen, this is awesome because, I mean, for one thing, just the practical aspects of teaching about the economy is difficult. And I think this is just so creative. And then also you have a behavioral incentive built into all of it. The exchange rate with, I mean, I was totally geeking out when you talked about that you had an exchange rate connected to. It's just so thoughtful. And you know, the one that I hope I say this right, I probably won't. I think that even if it's disappointing that it hasn't impacted some of the ones that you had in mind, you know, that have been, have lower expressions of motivation. You know, teachers take on so much, and even if it didn't have the impact this year, you never know what seed that plants in another time. It may not be showing up right now. And then also because of the great professional and emotional stress that teachers take on, I think it also, hey, we've tried this now too, you know, and so there's kind of that peace of mind standpoint too of we're trying all these creative approaches and we keep trying, and you know, it's not like we're going to stop trying, but just because we don't reach them right now doesn't mean that it doesn't reach them at another time when those ideas are more maybe emotionally accessible to them. So I want to thank you for that very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope it was fun and motivating to do this. It sounds like it was.
Yeah. Yeah, at the beginning, I'm still pretty gung-ho. I mean, I'd like to have the FDIC come in next week to like spice things up a little bit. It's a real world application. But yeah, it's been good overall, I think. If we continue to do it next year, there will be some tweaks that we'll make at the start of the year. For sure.
I was just going to speak on that part of it. At the end of the year, when you have data, allow yourself to kind of go back and look at the data, and so that you're making those changes that are based off of, you know, what's working, what hasn't. So you're not shifting too many variables. Because this is a behavior intervention, and it's going to take consistency and time as you're doing it from my end of things. I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, the stores need to see the kids have been very excited about that. So those days are neat to see.
Awesome. Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely, thank you for coming tonight. We're going to call a brief recess so we can powder our noses. Megan, is there anybody signed up? Okay, I didn't think so, but I just wanted to make sure.
Want to say this.
Everybody ready? Okay. We'll go ahead and call the meeting back to order. We have no public comment tonight, so we'll move on to financial report. First up is the IC HVAC.
So earlier this year, we approved the HVAC work here at the IC, and we've talked about some financing options as we go through start this process. And Nate's got a few options here, and we'd like to see a recommendation tonight so that we can proceed with this project.
Yeah, and I think you should all have in your packet there. There's a 3-year and a 4-year option. Both first payment dates would start in July of 24. Both of the interest rates are the same, 5%. Really, the overall, the rate really wasn't that bad. We kind of held out from late last year to kind of see what rates we're going to do. So overall, we're unless you really have any particular questions on the bids themselves, we're proposing to seek the 4-year option. We do have a option with no penalty, prepayment penalty on either. So our intention is to extend it to 4. However, our intention is to go ahead and start applying to the principal sooner than later. So. And this work is scheduled to begin May 22nd. And this will last about 2 to 3 weeks during the summer period. And financially, you're comfortable approaching either 3 or 4 years?
4-year, yeah, we budgeted for 150 originally, kind of pre my days, but that's what we're looking at. I think we could swing 3 years, but I prefer, since we have no prepayment penalty, to go out 4. Again, my intention is to start applying, especially after we get through the BOTA. But it kind of gives us a little bit of cushion there. But we do also kind of out the realm, we do have another small previous loan with the institution that we were looking at possibly paying off this year. We have not yet, also because of BOTA, so we're going to be applying to that. That's kind of a separate issue itself. Yeah. I think if you just notate, we're looking at the end of this month to begin the process of finalizing that finance piece.
So you want to have questions? You said there's no penalty.
No prepayment penalty.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
So did you check with multiple institutions?
We did. We had our consultant that did all that process with the local vendors. And this one particular was the one that only responded back. That we got. That I received at least from him. So.
We budgeted 150, right? So it's payment is under and no penalty for going ahead. I like the 4-year better than the 3-year just because of the context of no wiggle room right now.
Right.
That makes me more comfortable personally.
Honestly, it just makes sense to me to do that. Just to kind of give us that extra. Again, the intention's not to utilize the whole 4. And I don't want to get away from easier said than done, but that is the goal there.
If there was a penalty for paying sooner, then I wouldn't like
Right.
that.
That was one of my first questions at the get-go.
Okay.
Yep.
So there's a, never mind.
So you need a motion for approval for the amortization schedule for 4 years. Make sure I say, let me look at I forgot to bring my laptop again. Kay's gonna remind me that I shouldn't do this on my phone. There we go. Okay, I'm not seeing a suggested motion, so I'm just gonna go make one up, and board clerk, if there's an issue, let me know. I move we accept the 4-year payment plan as presented that allows for paying in advance without penalty. That would result in work beginning May 22nd and first payment date being July 15th, 2024 at $145,240.88 underneath the budgeted amount of $150 for that year one. Does that do it?
Sure, thank you.
All right, it's been moved and Tony seconded to approve the 4-year plan as presented. All those in favor, say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Nate. All right, item 2, LOB resolution for 24-25.
Okay, and I think I included the resolution also in your packets. So this is a resolution that we passed back in 2020 that actually expires this time next year for the LOB to set the limit or the ceiling for the 33%. We're just getting a head start on this. So we're presenting that this evening for the 24-25 fiscal year to do the same thing for 33%. Into perpetuity. So this just allows us to carry this. Now, again, this is just a ceiling. This doesn't always say we have to do 33%. But this just allows us to have the flexibility at each budget season. So we're okay for this upcoming 23-24 year. Again, we're just trying to get the ball rolling just because of the process that's involved. So that's what we're seeking this evening. Yes.
33% is the maximum allowed. You can set the percentage level 31, 32, 33. If you were to set it to 32, but the state average were to exceed it, then that's money you're leaving on the table with access.
Yeah. State average currently is 31%.
This allows that ceiling so that you always have the flexibility.
Yeah.
So we still adjust that percentage annually.
That's correct.
This gives you the ability to. If you don't, then you have to take the state average 31%.
Yes.
And previously, we have approved this ceiling to be set multiple times. We've always put a timestamp on it.
Right.
I mean, that had been addressed.
Yeah.
Well, Nate and I were visiting. I think the preference, the recommendation we would have would be to go into perpetuity so that we always have that. We're not reevaluating this every 5 years. But that is a decision that you as a board have, obviously, the way to make at this point.
I'm slightly, what do you guys think? I'm slightly uncomfortable with things that go into perpetuity, and it's not because I don't think school boards shouldn't always leverage the most amount that you could potentially need. But I also, I'm not sure about how I feel about that. That's a future, part of that I feel like is the future board's stewardship. I'm comfortable with, doing a couple of years at a time, because if we can cut down paperwork somewhere, like, let's do that. I'm all for that. Right. I'm not sure what's the advantage, and I know what the disadvantages are in my mind, and I'm not saying my thinking is correct on it, but what are the advantages, again, of doing it in perpetuity? Is it simply for avoiding this part of it?
We would have to come back to the table, if you will, if we set a 4-year timestamp. We would come back 4 years and try to pass the resolution again. So it just gives us the flexibility. Again, it just sets the ceiling.
Sure.
But the last time it was approved, there was that timestamp.
Yeah.
So.
I personally like the timestamp thing. I mean, if you go back and hit the Wayback Machine, you go back 4 years, would you have guessed all the stuff that we've gone through and where we've been? No. So, I mean, who knows what the next 4 years hold? I mean, for no other reason, just because in 4 years, maybe none of us are even on this board anymore. It's a whole new ballgame. I like the sun. Anytime you can put a sunset on something, and you have to rethink about it, I think it's worth it.
And it's not because I'm against it principally. No. I just think about how we model other board level decisions, and there aren't too many things that we say, from wearing other hats in other situations where we say, we'll just let it go forever. It gives an opportunity for others to weigh in at some point, I guess.
Yeah, and this one is a bit unique, there's that whole community aspect, as well as that opportunity to get 2% of the voters to that petition against it. There's that additional, I don't know, fail-safe or like just process that can be initiated. It makes this a bit of a unique one where I'm kind of with you guys about like having a timestamp on it because it forces the new board 4 years from now, whatever we decide, to relitigate the conversation, reconsider whether it's still applicable to the current situation. It also gives our constituents the opportunity to say, even if the board did this thing, we want to kind of push back on it as well.
I mean, I would personally always vote for authorizing the highest amount. That's a little bit of my other thinking. Tony, Susan, Kelly, what do you guys think?
I guess my question is, why would anyone go lower?
Historically, I think probably 3 years ago. I mean, I think there was a period of time for 2 or 3 years when we were keeping it like 31.5%, 32%. I think maybe last year was the first time we actually jumped to 33.
But why was that? What was the reasoning to not maximize it?
I think if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody that was around, but I feel like we hadn't used it all, and there wasn't any extra it would have gotten us, and it was kind of a way to say like we'll just stay where we are.
Yeah, we didn't have a clear need.
This is where you'd be giving mills back.
Yes.
At that point.
Now we'd be, but at that point we just hadn't because we hadn't taken them yet. Now if we went down to 32, now we're giving a mill back.
Right, and so by putting it in perpetuity, you're giving yourself that ability to give mills back or go or maximize the 33%.
Yeah, and that's the other side of that. That's a good point. Because of how conservative we've been with our spending, that's been part of and we are in we're kind of in a different climate now. So this is a good conversation. Tony?
This is the discussion I remember when I first came on board, because you guys were setting it at 31 and 32. There was a long conversation about it, and I was new, and I had the same question Kelly did. I was like, we're not committing to this amount. We're just saying we can't go any higher than that, right? And so my comment at the time was, why not max it out, right? I mean, it does give us the flexibility, right?
Yeah.
And I don't have the same concerns about the perpetuity aspect of it, but I'm willing to concede that one. If we want to say we'll do this for the next 4 years, that makes everybody at the table now potentially off the school board, and the next school board can look at it.
Yeah. So annually, actually, I just submitted a couple weeks ago. We just submit to the state, here's what our potential is, this is what our ceiling is going to be. Again, that doesn't hold us to the fire. So at budget time, we have that conversation. Hey, where do we want to be? But it does give us that flexibility. Right. Absolutely.
So are you only setting the ceiling here, and then we're going to have another motion to approve what we're actually going to do at a later date, or are we doing both?
That's part of the budget process as you're approving your budget.
Yeah.
We had to do the motion this year that specifically stated that we were setting the LOB at maxing at 33%.
That was the part of the motion I got right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So this is our ceiling, this is our cap.
And this is the most the state will allow you to.
That's correct.
Right.
So being the devil's advocate, why would we, I'm not opposed to sunsetting it, but I guess having it always be available seems to make sense. But.
And I get that too. Like it
still means it's going to be approved every year in the fall through the budgeting process.
Right.
And it just eliminates this from having to take place each year, right?
So the difference, if we set 32 instead of 33, we're held to that 32 unless we present another resolution. So that's why through KSD, their guidance is that a lot of districts have done that. Doesn't mean that we have to, but they're just saying, to your point, we're just setting the ceiling. We can always adjust it. Yeah.
But if the average is 31, that means just as many at 28.
Yeah, and they were talking about the average potentially going to 32. They haven't made that change.
So if there was a change from the process, how would we, let's say this was an increase. Right now, the max is 33, and if there was some change in financing, the rules, the governing rules.
Oh, to 34 or 35.
Would this be binding us in some way of leaving it at 33 unless you have, the way it's worded, I guess I don't love the way it's worded where you have to have 10% of the qualified OLED. To me, it would be just something that's annually renewable unless the board changes it.
I think
That's
simple. 10% is
language.
people that don't want it, that want to fight it.
That's part of the disputing process.
Oh, the disputing
That's
process,
sustained.
but how do we change it if we set this and it never gets revisited again? And
I think
it
we-
ends up going up to 34 or 35.
Yeah, I think we just have to re-present a resolution to adjust. for that.
Basis.
Yeah, but that's a good point.
So if we said in perpetuity, to not, on that same vein, could a future board say we actually want to reduce it to 31? So if we're not
Well,
locking
that's,
in
you're
for-
doing that through your approval of the budget.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah.
No matter what the number is.
Right.
We're still-
Every board is still.
Yeah.
They're still gonna approve their annual budget.
Yeah.
Yep.
You still have that control. This is just saying that.
And you or our district with a future board would be able to come in and create a new resolution to
So this is just going to solve, it's just going to prevent us from having to talk about this every year.
Which I'm more comfortable. Thank you
It's
guys
not
for the
binding
discussion.
then.
Yeah. I think in the past, and also people who were there, speak up, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was just kind of this other layer of making sure, we understand coming out of what the economy was like at that time. When I started in 2015, it was about, are we making sure that we're squeezing every penny? I mean, and does this, if we set it this, it's kind of like in personal spending, if there's these control levers, for discipline. I mean, that was the mindset, even though no one was coming from a place of, we don't want to fund things well. It was, for me personally, especially as a new board member at that time, I think it was more the reflex of just being, but now that we've talked about it, I'm not opposed to saying it that way. I just didn't want to limit a future board's ability to make that philosophical point of view in either direction. You know what I mean?
I think we all agree on that, but I don't know that approving this does that.
Okay.
And in my short time on the board, it seems like we have this discussion every year, and then we say, max it out.
Right. It's a time saver.
Yeah. And you actually just say, we're gonna max it out, and then we can focus on the discussion of really what do we want to go.
Right.
Well, can you give your reasoning for presenting this to us?
Because it's going to expire next year. So we had a timestamp previously.
So right now, it's expiring every year.
No, well, right now we had a 4 or 5 year from the last time. So we really haven't brought it to the table. And that's why we're bringing it to the table this evening.
We've not done it
Right.
every year, but the last time we voted on it, we gave it, I thought it was a 3-year, maybe it was a 4-year.
4 maybe. Yeah.
And so we did do a 1 year, one, because we were nervous about it. It was a new thing that we were required in that particular way. And so then we got comfortable with it the first time, so we're like, okay, we'll authorize it for 4. That's right. And now we're at the end of that cycle, which is why it's coming before us again.
And
So
I don't have the history, but I mean, I'd have to look back, but we haven't maxed it out.
No, that's
Oh,
right.
no, we've never gone to it, yeah.
Especially this year.
That we can joke about this.
hey, you gotta keep your sense of humor.
Well, I would make a motion to approve this resolution as it has been presented to us in writing, clearly explained.
Is there a second?
Second.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Just get them got emotional about it.
Yeah.
You actually love voting on this every 3 or 4 years. Discussion again.
Yes, yes.
You don't want to see it go away.
Right. Okay, Tony has moved and Kelly has seconded that we approve the LOB resolution as presented, which is stated in the following way. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of USD 348 School District shall be authorized to adopt a local option budget in each school year in an amount not to exceed 33% of the amount of total foundation aid. The local option budget authorized by this resolution may be adopted unless a petition in opposition to the same, signed by not less than 10% of the qualified electors of the school district, is filed with the county election officer of the home county of the school district within 40 days after publication of this resolution. If a petition is filed, the county election officers shall submit the question of whether adoption of the local option budget shall be authorized to the electors in the school district at an election called for the purpose or at the next general election as is specified by the Board of Education of the school district. And so on this day, March 20th, 2023, this resolution would also be adopted in perpetuity. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your right hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Thanks, guys, for the good discussion. Okay, request to open bank account for voter repayment.
So it's been kind of an interesting process, really just trying to let it soak in what's the best way, more so administratively, but also the cost. We originally were looking at doing cashier's checks, those things through our institution. It's just too expensive. With conversation with KSTE and our CPA or auditor, we found that we think we have a great solution. So in turn, I mean, I've kind of drawn it out there for you in my notes, but what we want to do is we're going to open just a separate checking account for BODA dollars. This allows us to do one disbursement through APTA instead of doing 2,500, 3,000 entries, things of that nature. We are still obviously going to reconcile, audit it. Again, the auditors were fine with that, but it just made the process the easiest that I believe that we could get it to, without bringing extra bodies in, paying extra dollars, all that. So along with that, I can either handwrite checks, but we do have a vendor that came in and said, hey, we have a price, about $3,500 estimate for them to just physically cut the checks. That's paper stock, that's everything. That's stuffing of envelopes. That's a local vendor here in town. So from $14,000 to $3,500, if I bought my own checks, if I hand wrote, it's about $1,500. And hand cream, yes. I'm not a celebrity. Yeah. So I guess that's just what we're seeking, is that the approval to just open that separate checking account. Because this could be a year, 2 year before it really closes out. We're going to have checks that aren't going to be cashed, those types of situations. So it's not going to be one done, we're done in 2 months.
Gets it out of our general operating.
That's correct.
Line.
Yeah.
And gets
Yeah.
into its own line to watch.
Right.
And we use the same type of safeguards we have for other bank accounts to make sure we've got
Yes.
security on this.
Yeah, all the dollars will be in the same location, I'm just shifting it over.
Well, and Nate, and Mark, wasn't that one of the reasons why you started looking at, in addition to just calculating the people hours, also the privacy of, or not the privacy, but the security of account information. Thinking about the logistics of how that was going to go out, isn't that part of the motivating reason why you started researching this option? Yeah,
definitely. And I think it just, honestly, it came down to man hours and dollars too. Along with that. The hours, I was kind of just shying away from it because it would have been a process. And I really feel like this really segregates those dollars. I can keep it to the side. It's not in our operating funds. It's just clean.
It's clean.
Yep.
And despite all those expenses, that's not why we pay you guys. That's not your primary work.
Yeah.
And
it needs to be done. But I want to find the most efficient, cheapest way to do it. And I think we've hit a home run there with that. So
that's great.
So on our we're glancing at the budget for the district, that might still show up on the general fund with all those folks cashless checks.
No. So what we're looking at is when we disperse, we'll disperse from the LOB.
Okay.
One check. I envision one check, but we may do multiples. But I'm just shifting those dollars, the total. I've got the breakdown from Franklin County. I haven't received Douglas County quite yet. Once I get that, I can shift those dollars. So that way it's just one lump sum. That's just one PO. That's just one disbursement. Now I start tracking it in a separate account.
Do you know if those disbursements are going to go to the or is it going to go to the individual?
These are all individuals that pay taxes in full. So we're not dealing with mortgage companies. We're not dealing with at this time. So we're responsible for cutting checks just for individuals and companies that pay their taxes in full in December. The others through mortgage companies, escrow, are prorated through the county. We won't even deal with that.
We'll see their May responsibility drop.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll add to, I guess the question is, if they have a bill pay system or a vendor of their own on a personal side, and we receive the money, or the money was received by somebody other than the individual, paying in full, is it going to go back to that vendor, or is it going to go directly to the taxpayer?
We receive a list from the county. It's John and Mary Smith. Here's the address. They're giving us all of the factors. Yeah, it's going back to John and Mary.
So oversight for the board then on this one is, like, if we pick a separate account, how do we keep tabs on that and make sure that's getting down to zero equals account? What's the procedure for that? I know it's kind of new.
It's kind of unique. We're still going to reconcile it each month, but I'll have statements. So just like we do now in APTA. I'm just not using physically APTA to punch in my checks. Yes, I've cleared that check. It's going to be more manual, so a little bit of back work, but up front, it's going to save us a bunch of time.
And I would anticipate at board meetings throughout this process, you'll receive updates.
And we can upload. Sorry, Mark. We can upload into board docs each month. Copies of updated balances if you wish.
Would it be a consent agenda item, just like we do payroll, and bill pay? It's kind of a standard thing.
Yep.
Rather than having it be an item of presentation every time. Maybe it's something, obviously, I think we should come back to it, a year from now. Where are we or whatever, or maybe sooner than that.
Wouldn't it just be a separate line item? We'll get LOE, we'll get general fund, we'll get a line item like that.
Well, it really wouldn't be an APTA report, like a cash summary. I'm kind of envisioning maybe we can upload, I could either do a spreadsheet or I'd hate to do just the physical bank statements, but we can do that. What I'm saying, just for account numbers and things. But yeah, we can work on that.
Yeah, just spend some time thinking about a good way that we can follow it and track it in a regular way.
Yeah.
Without having to be like a PowerPoint.
The biggest thing was just making sure their auditor was good with this. And also I ran it up to KSDE and they were fine with it. So as long as we can show documentation, which we will.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been counseled or checked on what the timeframe is to leave that open? It's just likely that you see like these many refunds, some people are never going to cash a check. And then that checking account stays open with money in it for how long? What's the statute of limitations? Or, lots of times you get a check that says void after 90 days. Is this going to have some provisions?
Yeah, well, if it doesn't have anything stated, it's 6 months. As far as the check goes void, goes stale, the stale date check, unless we put something on there. Please cash within a year.
But you require them to resubmit if they request it, or how long? Because this account can be open for years.
Yeah, that's correct.
So there's no fees to the account.
I haven't researched physical accounts yet. My goal is to have a no fee account.
Ideal. If it is, there's no worries. But if it has some sort of fee and we end up having this requirement to have it open for 10 years.
Yeah, most of them, they average $10 a month. Depending on the institution, depending on the type of account. Some have zero. I know our current operating account actually has a $60 a month fee that they charge us. Luckily, we're making a bunch of interest.
So with the request to open the bank account, is that something that we need a motion on? Do you just need consensus that the board is okay with that direction, or is that something we need to have?
I would suggest a motion just because when we update bank signatures, I think we require approval to do that.
And I think it's a good place to document the process.
Okay.
Because we'll have, yourself, just like we do at the other accounts for signers. Yeah.
But we don't have the specific bank yet. It's just authorizing the procedure of opening.
Yeah.
Okay. I move that we authorize the opening of a bank account for the purposes of Board of Tax Appeals repayment.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Raise
Can
your
I
right.
ask a
Oh,
question?
sorry, question,
Is that
discussion.
regardless of fees?
Oh,
Or should we put some sort of cap in that motion?
we can, so we can amend the motion.
I'm just stating for the safety of.
What's a cap that everyone's comfortable with?
Zero is fine.
Yeah, capped at
I
zero.
love zero. I don't know, you mentioned,
That's a good
you're paying
point.
$5 a month right now, you said?
Our main operating, we pay 60. Yeah.
$60 a month? See, that's what I'm afraid. I mean, I don't love it.
But we do have other accounts that don't have any. So, and a lot of that is probably based upon the fact that we're making the interest that we were when they initially did the agreement before I arrived. They probably, yeah, we're going to accept that fee, but we're going to get a higher interest yield.
In a perfect world, I wish we knew exactly the detail of the account so that we were approving it that way. If we don't, then I think, to me, my recommendation would be to put some cap on it. And if you can't meet that cap, come back and ask for something different.
Understood. What's a cap everybody's comfortable with?
I'm comfortable with $10 a month. I'll throw that out there. Somebody can raise it. Somebody can raise it.
All right, so the amendment to the
Well,
motion.
if there's a high balance in there, and things charge more if there's a high balance.
Usually it's the opposite.
Then, okay.
I need to, I apologize, I didn't dive into that.
I'm just saying, because I don't want to, but I don't know business wise.
My experience with ours is that the lower your balance gets, the higher the fee is.
So if you're about $2,000.
Yeah, if you're about $2,500, there's no fees.
Okay, that's good to know, because
But these are business,
free.
you know what I'm saying, they're comparing apples to oranges.
Depending on traffic.
It kind of depends on the traffic and how, you know, if these are just making a one-in disbursements out, I would hope that we could find something for that.
I definitely want to be
If
able
you
to.
have stuff for the whole district, as busy as that is, I can see why there's a lot of statement, a lot of data that they're processing.
Yeah, I definitely want to negotiate that, and I don't feel like I'm going to jump into it and say, yeah, but yeah.
Okay,
And-
can we just rely on Nick's professional judgment and knowing that we're concerned about it?
We can request that, yeah.
I mean, I trust him, because I don't know what the caps are going to be, like as far as.
I don't either, that's why I wish we knew.
Well, and we didn't want to go down that path without knowing that the board was okay
Was okay with it.
doing that.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's a great idea, I'm totally approving of it.
Yeah, it's not something, just because of the situation, it's not something that we really would probably do in an ordinary situation. But I just feel like that was a good solution. You know, two birds, one stone.
Yeah.
Well, then do we just say proceed and then come back and tell us?
Yeah, we can approve that.
And that's why I was wondering, does this need a motion rather than us saying, yes, our blessing is to proceed forward with this action? And then that way, when you have the formal motion of this is the bank, to me, that makes more. But if you're not comfortable with that, I want to honor that too.
for me, it has more to do with the timeline. The next time we'll meet will be the 17th, I believe, of April. And so that's, if he can get a free account, we'd like to be able to start processing things so that we can move forward.
Well, then let's just do it with some sort of cap. I don't care if it's $10, whatever, 15. I mean, if whatever's reasonable, and then if it exceeds that, then it does give us a chance to revisit it and think about it.
Okay. So the amendment, we need to vote on the amendment to the motion first if we're doing that. So the amendment to the motion would be to set a cap of $15, $10?
15,000.
Okay, $15. All of those in favor of amending the motion to include a cap of $15 as the fee, that would be the motion for the amendment. Is there a second to the amendment? Okay, Chris has seconded the amendment, Megan. All those in favor of the amendment of adding the cap of $15, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 6-0. Now we'll go back to the motion, which will be that we move to open a bank account for the purposes of voter repayment with a cap of a $15 fee. Is there a second? Chris has seconded. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, administrative reports, out-of-state soccer trip. Mr. McCune, hello, thank you for your patience. There's pieces of this we've never done before, so thanks for waiting while we figure some stuff out.
We're all learning here now. Okay, so a couple years ago, we went to Minnesota, and it was a highlight, and we thought, even though we've had a lot of success on the pitch the past few years, when you ask a player the best part about high school soccer, most of them say the Minnesota trip. It was just a really good way to bring the players together. I'm all about more just providing memories because that's kind of what I hold on to. And soccer has done so much more for me than just, keep you athletic, give you opportunities on the field, but it's given me so many opportunities, and that's something I like to share. So on behalf of Coach Ben and Coach Cox, who couldn't be here tonight, we'd like to try to get this trip organized. We have a lot of it already organized. Obviously, we would like to get approval from the board for that, set for June 18th. We already have 5 high schools willing to play us. One of them was state runner-up last year at their highest level. So it would be a really good test for us. And also, we have several activities for them to do. Parent-wise, we have a great group of parents, so I'm sure there'll be lots of parents going as well. Right now, we're looking at about $400 per player, and that's not including transportation. So when we went to Minnesota, we took vans from the school district. Pluses and minuses on that. We'd like to keep everyone together, but also it was able to keep our costs down. So we're kind of looking into some options for transportation. But anyway, any questions?
Are we not moving for transportation also?
I mean, I would like for us to do that.
Do we need to make that as motion, or is it?
Yeah, looking at Megan.
I would specifically say transportation.
I think we did last time,
We've
too.
visited transportation so many times.
And it's outside of the school year, too.
Specific with it, we don't have to revisit it again.
Yeah.
Can I just re-say it?
She didn't type it yet.
I move we approve the out-of-state soccer trip with including transportation.
Susan has moved and Tony has seconded to approve the out-of-state soccer trip as presented with district transportation. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Narcan policy update.
So what this is Megan and I were looking at the policy to get it into our policies. Came across the protection from liability piece that KASB recommends, and so this would be adding that to the policy itself. So what you've got is the original policy approved last month, and then the second item there is the proposed policy that adds the liability protection.
The follow-up language needs to be included as well, though, right?
Megan, the follow-up language there is
Says follow-up.
Yes.
So all of that
All of that.
is.
I left out the rest of it because it didn't refer to that, but
Right.
all of that. Yeah.
Okay. So something that would encompass the follow-up language and the protection from liability would get it without having to read all of it?
Yes.
Okay.
And as a side note, while you're processing that, between the junior high and high school, we've got 18 staff that have been trained and are ready to act if necessary with Narcan.
Nurse Lisa did not let any paint dry. That's awesome.
She was moving on that. So kudos to her.
Any questions about this addition to the Narcan policy?
I make a motion to approve the proposed addition to what do you call this?
Narcan.
Tony has moved, Chris has seconded to approve the proposed addition to the current Narcan policy. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Operations update.
All right, so I've got, before I get into transportation, in and of itself, I want to take a moment to really publicly thank Mike, Elliot, and Linda for all of their work as we got through the winter season. And I've got my notes here, the pun, they weathered the storms very well. I was on a dad joke roll before I came to the meeting. But they did a great job. The communication that took place at the early morning hours was I just thought it was very helpful. Even on that day where we came in and we were driving the streets, and it just looked like I made a poor decision asking our crew to come in and treat the sidewalks to get a call from Mike at 6 o'clock saying, okay, it just turned into a skating rink in about 5 minutes here. We can't put buses on this. The crew, all the way down to those that were shoveling walks at the facilities, making sure they were clear for staff and students to arrive, to the bus drivers that did an amazing job on the days that they were traveling in with students on the snowy days. And then the community response on the days that we had off. So I just want to take a moment to thank Mike and Linda and their teams for all they did and publicly announce our appreciation there. With that is where I'll segue into transportation. With everything that has transpired and gone on this year, what I'd like to do in terms of transportation director is go ahead and just proceed with setting up an application or a job application for the transportation director moving forward. Prior to BOTA, I was doing some work to look at what all of the options are. And to be honest with you, when you outsource, you don't save any money in that. So what I think right now in the best interest for moving forward, I think it is proceeding with hiring a new transportation director. We can get the posting up this week. I was talking with Megan about that before the meeting. We can get the posting up this week, and best case scenario, have a recommendation at the April board meeting as well. And I've had a couple of folks talk to me about, what are the plans, So I know that there are people out there anxious or excited to see what we do. As far as operations update, that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Old business, food and nutrition spin-down plan.
So at our last meeting, and we've talked about it with the different reports that we've received, from acknowledging from the beginning of the year, we had excess funds in food and nutrition due to 2 years of free meals, and knowing that these funds have to, at some point, be spent down. What does that plan look like? And so Nate has been working with Nicole for the last couple of months trying to identify what does this look like for our district? What have we currently been doing, and what can we do here in the next year or so to adequately spend down? So, Nicole?
Okay. I included some of this in your report that I sent, but just kind of refresh, there is no deadline at the moment. We had, Kansas law requires that food service departments are in the black at the end of the year. USDA requires that we have no more than 3 months worth of expenditure or operational expenses in. So we kind of got this little window. That's real fun from year to year to try and stay within this. So at the end of last year, we did have about 150,000, and because of the issues with the pandemic, particularly the supply chain issues for us, the Child Nutrition Wellness at KSDE recommended that we kind of hold off and not spend just because we have it they don't see a lot of improvement coming anytime soon in our supply chain issues. For example, even though our participation, because we don't have the free meals this year, participation goes down about 30%, food costs are actually higher than last year. that's what we're dealing with as far as where that's money's somewhat being spent. You also approved increases for our staff, which we appreciate, but there's about 10, 12,000 right there. And that's basically what we told KSDE we would be spending this money on this year. We also had already planned to use some of our funds for the junior high dishwasher. I'm still waiting on, it's actually the installation portion of that quote to come back. I'm guessing that's going to be 40 to 50,000 pretty easily. Those prices have shot up. I'm hoping we can get it in time to install it this summer. So fingers crossed that happens. That takes care of a substantial amount of that 150,000 that we had extra. Now that's just the excess. There was still enough for us to operate for 3 months, which is a little bit higher than what we would normally have because those were free meal days of participation. So it was a little higher. So we're probably going to have money next year. How much? Who knows? That's going to be hard to tell. Summer's kind of a separate section in it, but it still falls under the food service. We aren't anticipating to make a lot of money this summer because of all the changes that are probably going to happen. Potential of having congregate meals again, where they come every day. Probably won't have the breakfast. That eliminates all of our weekend meals. We've been providing a week's worth of meals to our students all summer long. There's 4 meals right off, probably another 5 with breakfast, and then if they'll come, if there's something else going on, maybe, but we're definitely going to see a decline. We're just pretty sure about that. So I won't find out till March 30th if the USDA has communicated with KSDE on when we do our training, whether or not, but I'm just anticipating. So some of our funds may go towards that, but I kind of give you some of our ideas. The supervisors and I have met to kind of throw out. So what are we needing to change? What would increase participation? What would help with our labor efficiency? There's a couple things on there that are more food safety oriented. For instance, we refer to it as the cold well at the junior high. So what they get their fruits and veggies, that bar on, isn't actually a cold well. It's just a well that we put cold items in. It doesn't have a refrigeration unit like our others do. So things like that would help our food safety if we could replace some of those. It's a really old building, as you all are probably aware. So that's why we're replacing walk-in cooler and freezer, dishwasher, cold line, and some added bakery equipment are all going to the junior high, but it's just a much older building. So trying to think of what some other, were there questions on the list of some ideas? I know one of the larger expenses would be potentially having vending machines at the junior high and high school, and those would have reimbursable meals in them. Other school districts have done that, so there's certainly whole companies that are just dedicated to this type of vending operation. We could do a la carte items that meet Smart Snack guidelines in those as well, if we choose. But for us, it would help with our labor situation if we could have another place where students could line up and get a reimbursable meal instead of all of them coming through our lines. So, for instance, we do an Uncrustable meal or a salad meal at the junior high and high school every day. Those could be in a vending machine. They still use the same POS. They just put in their number. For added security, they also have to put their date of birth into those machines. And we verify that everything's in that package is enough for the reimbursable meals, so we still get the funding as if they came through our line. We could purchase a second one for each of those schools that had our a la carte beverages, for instance, or chips and cookies and that kind of stuff that we also sell. So that's one. We know that'll be a pretty high cost, and we have to get approval from the state for that one. That one's not an approved expense. I do know that Shawnee Mission and Spring Hill have both had those. They didn't keep the reimbursable for very long. I've been trading emails with the Shawnee Mission person because it's a different person now than was then when it was happening. So they're both using theirs for Smart Snacks, so a la carte only. We would like at some point to enclose the high school walk-in cooler and freezer. I don't know if you've been to the back of the building, but those are outside. Part of that is for safety of my staff going in and out of those doors. Second would be going in out of 3 doors with a cart full of food and badging in and doing all that, as well as unlocking or keeping those open allows us for theft potential, which isn't great. We would also like to not go out in the rain and the snow and the wind and everything else that is in Kansas during the school year. So there's usually some disagreement most days over there on who gets to go back out and get another case of pizza or whatever it is, because none of us want to go out when it's 12 degrees. So would be nice to have that. Again, that would be a higher expense. Most of the other ones are much lower. They don't even have to be approved by the state. They're under the $5,000 cap. So garbage disposals and things like that, that run around a couple thousand. Trying to think if there's anything else. Were there questions? We have a milk cooler at the primary center that's operating, but making a lot of noise when it operates. So we're pretty sure it's going to die here real soon. So things like that will probably go ahead and fit in to the end of this year. But those are going up. I quoted something to our vendor the other day, and he said, "Oh, add about 2,000 to that." So it kind of surprised me that they're running about 6,000, and I was thinking 3 to 4. So that's a huge increase. That was me increasing it from the last time we bought one at about 1,800. Yeah. So questions? Is there anything that you were concerned about? They're hoping so. They've scheduled the training for the end of this month for that reason, thinking that they'll know answers. They did that last year in April, and we didn't get it until the middle of May. So you just don't know. One thing they did tell us was the USDA has already designated that non-rural sites will have to do congregate. We are not, strangely enough, considered a rural site by their definition for summer food. It's because it's by county, and Lawrence just puts us right on up in that. So just to give you an idea, Emporia, Hutchinson, Salina, all rural, Baldwin City not. A little strange to me and some of the others on the call, but yeah, that's because they're basing it on the county, and the county level is pretty high with Lawrence in here. So that's kind of why we're planning it. Plan to send out an email actually in the morning to get that committee to meet, because I think we're going back to summer number 1 kind of ideas on where are we going to be, what day, and those kinds of things.
It's very operation to drive out and I see, I guess it was, and driving weeks worth of food versus.
It was, yes. Yes, yeah. Well, part of it is, parents work. So middle of the day, they have to figure out how to get their student to one of our sites. We try and coordinate it with something, but still that's every day. So I have been in touch with the library director, so we'll probably have at least that once a week in coordination with their story time like we did before. It's an indoor AC location, so that helps a lot. The pool gets a little warm in July to be out there. We'll probably shift some time, so maybe the pool is a little more popular. It wasn't our most popular site, even though we saw a whole bunch of students walking in, but they just didn't get meals beforehand. So heck, some of the staff and lifeguards that are at the pool qualify for being able to get those meals and just being able to, but I think we'll shift it and just have them down at the pool. We were up at the gazebo that's on the corner, which is nice. We'll probably have to set up a overhead tent and stuff to help with food safety, keep it a little bit cooler. That was the nice thing about that. But if we are just there, say around 12:30, they can just walk in with theirs. Those kinds of things will probably shift from that for summer, but
that was so much work.
It was.
I wish they wouldn't have.
Yes.
I just think more people used it with the,
yes,
drive and go thing, and that's too bad. But so I understand why you're making careful calculations about participation, especially the first year. They'll be like relearning it.
Exactly.
I mean, the fellowship opportunity is super cool, but it's a lot of transporting of a lot of food to a lot of different conditions and places and
It is.
volunteer
Yes.
coordination and all that, so,
Yes.
and not much time to put it together.
My staff was quite disappointed by
I
that.
bet.
Yes, not quite to the level of the first COVID year of full vans of food that we had to haul out, but it is still an awful lot because we're keeping hot foods hot and cold foods cold. It is have a different coordination than what our others do, but it's usually, 50 to 75 servings versus the like 400 and some we were doing out at the library. So not quite the lifting capacity that we have to have for those, because those were bundles. Those were already 14 meals in a package that we had to lift in and out of those. So, yeah. So yes, we've tried different ways to get staff, but I don't know if you've seen most of my staff. Most of them are older than me. It would be very nice to have some young people who could lift, but can't quite get. We tried the first year, the football coach at that time, we did try and get, this is a new weightlifting program for your athletes. Yes. Well, yeah, not just one, but like 20. So, yeah. But yeah, any other questions as far as the spending? I will probably spend the summer working a little bit more and getting those spent. That's, as you know, I'm only part-time then, and so I can focus a little more on that than in the middle of planning next year, ending this school year and planning summer. This is a crazy time of year for us, so, yeah.
Any other questions? Is one of the options like, and this may be like, clearly I ask a lot of stupid questions, but what if spending down, and I think all the things that you mentioned are like, all of that makes a ton of sense. I may be answering my own questions as I say it out loud, but is there a way to like triple the salad bar at our buildings for more? Is that create?
So some of that is,
I lean more towards, and this is just personal, but when I hear vending machines, and part of it's because I don't have the visual of how that looks. I've not seen it, and so I don't know. And part of it too is because I'm allergic to dairy, so I have different eating things in the house. So I'm like, is that something that you guys have looked at in terms of expanding the salad bar options?
Yes, so I'll address those individually. So obviously we'll still have our line open, so anybody who has allergies or intolerances can still come through and get those per our other meal management plan. Yeah. Second, I would say the vending machine it reminds me of what's like in a hospital where you put in your number and then you like slide a bin. And so you would pull out your salad, or you would pull out.
All I
so
can
it's a
envision
full
is like Twix.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. And we can't sell that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
yeah. We have pretty strict standards with Smart Snacks on what we can sell.
Right.
So that would be a separate machine anyway. These would have, so like I referred to, our Uncrustable meal, we already bag those up and they're just sitting in a cooler for them to walk by and pick up. And so that's what we're thinking we would put in there. And that would be an Uncrustable, chips, string cheese, a fruit and a veggie is what we also, there's a way for them to decide whether or not they want a milk in there. Those are a little bit more expensive machines, so we'll have to make those kind of decisions then, whether or not it's a choice or just to share tables right next to it and they can put their milk there.
All vending machines, and I totally agree with that. I was having a hard time envisioning, healthy options. I mean, if we have an opportunity to spend down money, if there's a way to bring.
So I would love to, but we don't have quite the level of funding in there to do that. I'm trying to make some changes at each of the 4 schools.
Gotcha.
It would probably take our entire amount if we wanted to do this at one school, because we would have to totally reconfigure if we wanted any more space. And some of our schools don't have any more space for us to take. I will say one of the options, or one of the things we're going to look at, is a self-serve bar for the primary center kids. This is a hot topic of discussion in my staff because they know what kind of mess our intermediate center kids make. So they're a little scared about, I've seen it in place. You just get it lower and they figure it out. Yes, the first few weeks are going to be rough, but they figure it out. But that allows them to put the amount that they'll actually eat of the items on their plate. So the second part of that is part of the reconfiguring and the cost is you have to have all of this before the register, before the point of sale, in order to count those. If you put it after that, then it's basically freebies, because we can't count any of that. So they may be taking something like a juice or an apple or something in the line just to get past the register, and then they load up over here. So we prefer to have it on this side and it actually count towards their reimbursable meal. That requires reconfiguring if we're going to do that. I would also say at this point at the junior high and high school, they offer all 5 of the veggie subgroups that are required. They offer those daily. So every day you have 5 veggies. In addition to, one of them is almost always salad. So sometimes iceberg, sometimes romaine, sometimes spinach, that kind of thing. One of them is always hot. And then you have the juice and another fruit option in addition to our entree option. So that's more than that's required. I don't know if you've been at the intermediate center when we're serving, there isn't any more room. We would have to buy new places to add to that. Okay. And if we put them out, say, in the cafeteria where I wouldn't say there's a ton of room. Right now, with the number of kids that are in there and the way the tables are set up, there really isn't a lot. But if we did that, we'd have to move our register out, and then they can't watch the line right as well. So,
well, I don't want to get like in the weeds about it. It was just something, if we're thinking about what options are available, anytime I can, anytime there's an opportunity for us to give more choices, I think that's great. I also know there's cost effectiveness to all of that. So I completely appreciate that. And thank you for answering my question.
And if we had the staffing that we would like to have, the entree options would be higher too. But we just kind of reach a point where they just can't do anymore. And,
I understand that.
They only have so many hours in the morning, and there are a couple of things on there that should help with some of that. However, the high school, I put roll-in freezer, meaning those bakery racks, those metal racks that have all the sheet pans, that would allow us to roll those in at night so we can actually prep a day ahead. Right now, with the walk-in cooler outside, we can't do that. It's a lot to bring in your box, fill it, and take your cart back out. It's just too much. They can't. We don't have the time to do all of that labor intensity. Plus, that freezer is full. There's no place to put the cart once we get out there. So having that separate that allows some prep. That allows us to have that other option. We would like to have another hot option at both the junior high and high school. We just can't figure out how to do it with staffing and the way we're configured with the equipment. So
well, I think it's great that you're looking at more, the functional equipment that just helps efficiency all the way around. And does anybody else have any other questions? Or I feel like you've given us a good overview of like what's the plan? What are more things to look at? I don't have anything else unless somebody else does.
Obviously, you all have my email, so if you find something on the list that you're like, what is this and why is she buying it, then just let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enrollment study.
Enrollment study. So last month, RSP came and presented, what they do for districts to help with their planning and projection. They give a 5-year trend, if you will, 10-year trend of the way things are going. They come in, they embed themselves in the community a little bit. They go through and they conduct all kinds of surveys and visit with locations to get an idea of what your current reality is and then what your capacity is as your community for growth and how that impacts the school district. And so they provided their information. I included in your packet what that pitch was last month. But I also tonight included in your packet what their proposal is for that. The fee to do that is $12,000, and it's paid at the end of their analysis when they provide the presentation to the board. And so if we were to go with RSP for this, what they would do is I would shoot for a November presentation. What that would do would give us an opportunity to get into next school year, see what next school year's enrollment is doing. That's going to be important too as we start seeing what families do with Panasonic coming in. This would be some good information and project what could it look like within their projections. I would also recommend that we do another study within 3 to 5 years to see what is the trend or the reality, and did it follow through with their path? What impact are we having? At that point in time, the open enrollment legislation will be fully in play. We'll be able to see, are people coming to Baldwin, or are we seeing them go to other districts? And that'll just help us within the future plan. Within their that base fee for the analysis of $12,000, they do also have additional fees for some of the work leading up to that. That's also included within that packet as well. And so tonight, what I would ask is board consider approving the enrollment study proposal with RSP as presented, so that we can start that legwork of getting the idea of what the enrollment is going to be doing for our community now, with the idea of following up in 2 or 3 years to see where, what's our reality like that.
So one question, and I haven't studied this and wasn't is there an option, or is it part of this process that they also give any advisory type feedback on what we can do to help, I guess, improve our enrollment?
That is not really. That's not part of their.
What's going on? I mean, because that, to me, that would be part of how they're coming up with our projected enrollment numbers. So they would have some. They would be looking at some of that, I would think.
I think that there's some information that you could probably take away if they're saying, one of the things that they'll do is they'll go through and tell you, students that are Baldwin students, one of the slides that you'll see, they're out of district, how many of our students are going to Lawrence, Tonganoxie, to Baser, not Baser, I'm just reading what's on here on the slide. So Lawrence to Eudora, to Wellsville, to Ottawa. And from there, you can kind of start having that discussion. Well, why are they going there? And then is it what they're offering within their CTE program? Does it have to do with where they physically live? It's those questions. So in a roundabout way, I think you get some information there. But
I guess what I'm maybe recommending is if they have the ability to do that we would love to see some of that information included in their study. I mean, I'm not asking for anything more, but if they're getting that on the backside to input into this report, just add that extra page for us.
Yes, tips for growing enrollment.
Pro tips.
Yeah, just anything that they would see that would help us enhance that.
And looking over there, reviewing part of what they presented, they had a development category as part of what, and that had to do with existing inventory and future inventory by type. So as a subcategory of analysis, I think some of that will be baked into what they're giving us, because that has to do with facilities, but I think it doesn't hurt to draw it out specifically that we're looking for those pieces of analysis too.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I can.
So you need a motion that approves.
Yes.
I move that we approve the enrollment study as presented. That's simple enough.
Yes.
Was that Tony?
Yes.
Sorry. Kelly moved and Tony seconded to approve moving forward with RSP doing the enrollment study as presented, which included the fee of $12,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
To include that study that would be presented in November.
They'll be presented in November
of 2023.
Yeah. And like I said, they do have the analysis fee is $12,000. They also do have some additional costs that are based on the research leading up to that work that's included in the proposal.
Oh, so more than 12,000. So maybe I don't say it. So what's the?
It's tough to gauge the ballpark of it.
So we're giving approval to move forward with RSP as the enrollment study. which Tony didn't say any of that, so that's not his fault, that's mine, or Kelly, and Tony seconded. Okay, the motion is to move forward with the enrollment study by RSP as presented. Sorry, I was trying to help and I actually made it more complicated. All those in favor say aye and raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Still under old business, we have the bond update. So a couple things. We had the hearing with KSDE a few weeks ago. Nate and Mr. Dodge were on that. 2 of our bond subcommittee members were on that. Kelly and I, we also had Dustin Avey from Piper Sandler, who were all on the call. And what that included was us appearing before their committee to present the plan that has been submitted for the bond project. Mr. Dodge has some stuff in writing that he received back. Our meeting, it was very short and sweet. It was a Zoom call, but it was kind of a cool honor to be able to appear in front of them and to be able to describe our project and what we are trying to accomplish on behalf of our students' education with that project. So why don't you do the more official part?
Well, the official part, I've got 2 letters for the Board of Education to have. I've got the originals back at the office. But the first letter here just basically it shares that our application for the bond was approved by the Board of Education. That took place as part of their meeting on the 14th. So that's exciting. The second one I think is important here because it goes into the repayment piece. Part of the project itself was it was approved with the notion that the application is to request capital improvement bond and interest state aid on the issuance of bonds in the amount of $25 million, which was the bond not to exceed, which if approved by the community would qualify for capital improvement bond and interest state aid to be prorated at 100%. And what that means is all aspects of the bond projects are subject to state aid based on the approved level, the percentages there. So if the state aid for repayment is allocated to us at 40%, that would be 40% of the entire bond project because it was at 100%. Does that make sense?
Including the athletic complex.
Yes, because it's also
because of its use for education with band, PE, physical education, and all the other uses that it'll incur.
Right.
Even non-athletic type events with the turf and science classes being able to go out there or whatever. So
absolutely,
that was the highlight for me of being on there is how excited they were about the use of our athletic complex for educational purposes and their approval and recommendation, which you just read, of approving it for state aid. So
we don't currently get any state aid for any of our previous bond projects.
We've got one. Nate, help me with this one. We've got one that's at 36%, and that was the one that we were considering calling, which pay off early with the state aid. The bond project itself, it is subject to being called, if issued would cause the school district's bond indebtedness above the bond limit to be $20,241,000. So that's the level that we could call it at, which would be an early payoff with state aid.
So that was exciting.
That's great.
Yeah, that was great news. A lot of questions. So, we're in this weird phase also where board members can certainly provide information. So just so everyone continues to be comfortable with what our role is now that we've advanced it to election, there's an entire, separate group that is taking care of reaching out to people. Our role is not a campaign one. Our role very much can be an informational one. As such, despite whether you were on a part of the subcommittee or not, I do have some materials now that they've been more finalized. They're informational materials because, again, all of that is being kept completely separate. But I will send those to Megan so that you guys have access. It's information like, depending on how much my house is, Because this is a question that many patrons can ask. It doesn't have to be about what's your view. It's just a straightforward, if my house is worth $300,000, how many Sonic drinks is this actually? And I want you all to be equipped with, here it is. It's not just residential property. It includes commercial property, agricultural, etc. So there's things like that. I don't want to inundate you guys with 20 pages of stuff, but some of the one-pager informational things, if you do get approached or someone shoots you an email, I just want to make sure everybody has all the same factual information at your disposal.
I did talk to you about this, but one thing I'd like to step the board through to help explain the mill piece to it. You get your phones out and turn on your calculators. I can step you through the calculation for that. What's that? Yes, activity, hands-on activity, So the example on the informational material that's there is basing it off of a $200,000 property. So we'll start there. The mills don't go against your entire value of your house. It goes against 11.5% of that value. So you take your 200,000 times 0.115 to get your assessed valuation. We all got those letters last month. All right, that's what you take your mills against. 1 mill is factored at 1/1000th. So if we're looking at 2.9 mills, you would take 23,000 times 0.0029. That gives you the annual amount. You divide that by 12, that gives you your per month amount, which comes out to $5.56.
Why has it not always been explained like that?
I'm going to tell you, I learned a heck of a lot about mills this year. I promise you that.
Right? The conceptual idea of mills and all of the speaking to it, but this was the best lesson.
I've on my trying to fill my nervous energy of going on this our spring break trip. I recorded a screenshot of that, so it's and I've got a wireless mic to plug into my phone. I'm planning on providing some informational videos to be able to get out to community members to show how to step through this process. So.
And I don't, as far as what our role is continuing moving forward, we've made sure to let the whole group that's working on the vote yes side, they shouldn't have to go beyond their lane of expertise. And that's why we've asked for the bond subcommittee's contact information to be on there. But also all board members, we're all in favor of it. We voted for it. We can't tell people how to vote. We should not do that. But we can give information. And where we have that opportunity, we should. And I want to make sure everybody's working with stuff that's accessible and makes sense. So, like I said, Megan will be sending that to you. Any questions related to the bond update? Okay. Staffing plan.
All right, so last month I provided everybody with an overwhelming amount of information on a 3-year plan. And I did that somewhat with some intention because when you start something like this, that first year, you see everything that's there. And I said that this month would be my intention to show you taking that feedback both from, in some cases, body language, in other cases, conversations that I've had, also in talking with a few board members to pare this down, or administration here, excuse me, to pare this down. In an ideal scenario, you'd be able to do everything in year 1, do everything in year 2, but that's not reality. Reality is you have to prioritize. And so what I've got here is the second draft, and this includes the prioritization of needs that have occurred. And so what I wanted to share with you, and I've asked Nate to put some figures together for me to show conceptually some dollar amounts there. One of the first need, it still remains the secretary at the primary center. We need to get a second one there. They're doing a great job right now, but it's not sustainable. And so we need to get someone there. And I would argue that when you talk about putting dollars to kids, those secretaries have just as much impact on kids and the experience that families have when they get there. So we need to make sure that we've got that support there in the front office. So that remains there. The second one, you'll see that I've put in there the ag sciences as the second need. And where this is slightly different from the last time I presented was it was all, I wanted to hear some feedback in terms of what the CTE study came from at the junior high and high school. And there's some internal things that they can have for 2 programs. One of those programs there, it's not laid out the way they want it. And so when talking with Brant today, he wanted to move one of those programs to year 2, or he and I talked about it's probably best to move that program to year 2. And that was the health sciences piece. It's not in alignment with how he would like to see this would be a potential teacher who's in year 3 with PD points at 16 there, just for a figure to speak. Chris asked, where do these connect to our strategic plan? And so I looked through our strategic plan and I pulled out a couple areas where I see some connection there. Preparing students for success, developing and implementing additional pre-high school and post-secondary planning activities. This is that IPS development. The CTE process itself is embedded within that IPS process. Target area 2 says supporting the needs of students and staff. Bullet item number 2 states include student voices and votes as well when appropriate and ensure the equal and equitable representation. We've got a lot of students at that junior high level where this is a high interest. Our community is an agriculture community. We've got agriculture outside of every single building. You go through the high school parking lot, if you can find a parking spot, it's probably next to one that's coming from agriculture. I mean, it's there. We've got some pretty large agriculture businesses that give back to our school district. I think this would be a great opportunity to explore that. Next year, with this, if this is approved by you, this would allow us to enter into the introduction or that first level, which is on the dime of the district. In year 2 is where we could get into those reimbursable programs to help offset the cost for something like this. Question that has come up is where can we do this? I'm not telling Derek this is where it has to be, but one option of where this could be is there's a storage room over at the junior high that was being allocated it could have been a classroom. And in talking with Derek and talking with Mike, they've got that room ready that it could be a classroom. So Derek, I'm not telling you it has to be there, but
it has chairs in it and they mopped the floors today. It's good.
So,
it's ready to go. It's ready to go.
we do have the space, and the state has said it doesn't. The location could be in a junior high and still allow for high school credit there. So that'd be a big ask.
But that could also be a pathway.
That would be a pathway.
And we would have to have, I think, Brant, I don't know, did you get my email? I checked on that, and you have to have an ag certified teacher.
And that's, and yep, and so the idea behind that, in order to get FFA, you have to have the yes, because there are requirements within the FFA program that connect with the curriculum that's within the ag sciences. You can tell that 4-H is huge in this community, and our kids are in it and they love it. This is, to me, a natural opportunity for the school district. So that's the big ask that I have there. Second grade, Nicole and I have talked. She's got 4 teachers in second grade, and there's 5 at the others. Based on how our enrollment goes, if we exceed 100 students at that second grade level, I'd really like to have a 5th teacher there. The learning to read apex to me is at that second grade level. Once you go into 3rd grade, you get into that reading to learn. And if we can get those class sizes down to comparable to what we have at 1st grade and kindergarten, I think we're setting our students up for more success with that. The item there says additional programming utilizing existing staff. This is one that Brant and I have talked about. this is where we've got social studies teachers that can teach this pathway through their department. And this would be one that we could utilize existing staff for the first year. Now, depending on the popularity and how that grows, I could see an additional teacher in the future being added, whether that's year 2 or year 3. Because one of the things that I know Brant's concerned about is we don't want to overload teachers with a lot of preps with that. Brant, did I reference that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, up at the high school, obviously, we have 4 science teachers, 4 math teachers, 4 English teachers, but only have 3 social studies teachers, which is doable. But just like math and science, you still need 3 minutes to graduate. So we're able to do that because Sunny Hour teaches some psychology courses, which qualify. But that takes away 2 classes for our English. So that's why we're a little bit on the book. Yes.
So, and the quote, one of there are ways for teachers to take praxis exams and have areas added to their license. And, you know, if we were to have a teacher at the junior high or the high school say, hey, you know, I'd like to take the praxis in one of these areas, that would allow the district some flexibility. In previous districts that I've been in, if we've had a teacher do something like that, the district's paid for the successful praxis that adds that to their license. So, and then you'll see years 24 and 25 where I added health science and then the potential public safety based on the growth of it at the high school level, as well as following down. You'll also note that we've got several ESSER positions that will be needing to have a plan for. So this is, I'm going to divert a little bit and save some of this for the legislative update within the superintendent report. But this is where having access with the LOB helps us as we look at being able to maintain some of these grant-funded positions, or in this case, ESSER-funded positions. And again, don't be overwhelmed. I'm not going to come to you in 24, 25 and say, okay, let's do 13 positions here. We'll go through this process. By having this established this early allows us in November, December to start having these conversations moving forward.
So again, is this a motion that this is not?
Well, what I would ask is to approve the plan for year 1 because it would be adding a position. If that's not the practice of the board, that's fine. But I think that I'd like to see
Potentially add 3 positions.
Yes, be adding 3, yeah. Potentially 3, correct.
And so you would like a motion to approve that as 3
Yes,
positions?
to approve the plan for year 23, 24.
Does anybody have comments? So moved.
Second. Kelly's moved.
To approve the 2023, 2024 staffing plan as presented by Mr. Dodd.
Susan seconded. All those in favor, please say aye, raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 6-0.
Those are all needs, but the second bullet point is really exciting. And we need to home run for this district. And kudos.
Thank you.
Just gotta find somebody.
Now we got to find the unicorn.
Yeah. When FFA jackets start showing up in Baldwin City, they're going to get a lot of high fives.
Thank you.
All right, new business, none. Board member, which is sort of weird because it's all old/new. Looks weird to see that, doesn't it? It's like we're not doing enough. No. Board member input, interlocal report. I had written here Chris rocking, but we already covered that.
Oh, I was going to say one other thing about me rocking. Dan Ray is also participating in that same program, so we'll be, traveling the state together over the next 6 or 8 months here to steal great ideas from other folks and bring them to Baldwin.
I did mean to say.
So nice. Who's that? The director.
Sped director.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Other interlocal news, we are we've had a lot of issues with para attendance So we were trying a unique incentive program that receiving some mixed results.
They got a great program at the middle school. It's called the Economy Unit.
Yeah.
We this is going to improve with that.
Yeah, so the big picture is if staff members are maybe, if pairs are here every day during the month of March, for instance, they receive a $100 bonus. If they miss one day, they receive a $50 bonus, or less, I should say. There's mixed perception to this type of program, but we're going to try this for a couple of months to try to increase because we're just basically not having substitute pairs at all at this point. So it's become a logistical issue. We can't provide services to kids. So we're trying to do this effort.
Like economists.
It does sound like economists, yes. We're incentivizing the appropriate behavior there. That's not how everybody feels about that plan, by the way. But so we'll see how it works. We're collecting data on it and see if it's had any sort of like changes in our attendance rates. And if it is effective, we may replicate that in years to come as well. But we're just doing it for that 3 or 4 month trial period here. The only other thing I was going to add to it is that not only is Baldwin going through a bond issue, as is Eudora going forward in May as well here. And one piece of reflection for us is as we, in the event that both of those were to pass, there's a lot of disruption to what an opportunity within where programs are placed for that as well. So what often happens with the interlocals programs like Bridges, for instance, is housed right here in Baldwin, right, for 18 to 21-year-old kids or young adults. Those programs tend to get shuffled around a lot when these types of bond issues come about as well. So I just want to encourage our board to be mindful of how that may impact some of those programs, because we certainly have kids in Baldwin that are going to programs in Eudora, for instance. Those programs have historically been shifted around every couple of years, and that may be happening again going forward, depending on what happens with those 2 bond issues as well. Okay. So as we get to further in our planning process, just be mindful of those specialty programs and not necessarily designing a home for them, but just being mindful that they need some place to go, and it's obviously more advantageous for us to have our kids, Baldwin kids, involved in it that way. But we need to pull our resources to make that happen too. So, anything else?
Lovely. Great.
We did it. All right. And we meet tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. That's it.
Miscellaneous. Any board member have additional input they would like to add? I do want to report to you guys that did site visits to each building right before spring break. It reminded me that part of our strategic plan is to aim for, we did not put specifications, but I at least wanted to bring it up. But part of that was to try to structure some of our, at least a meeting, kind of a touring type meeting. That was something that we talked about. We didn't say we're going to do it 4 times a year or anything like that. But I did want to bring that to attention. I know there's some logistical challenges to that of what that looks like, and I'd ask everyone to sort of think about that. It's not something we would want to do for a regular meeting, certainly, but it would need to be structured as a special meeting where we're caravanning, and anyone from the public who wants to come along is welcome to. But I at least wanted to be mindful that we set that for ourselves as a goal, and so I wanted to bring it up. I don't know what the right time is, but someone else smarter than I may have a better idea.
In my prior district, we've done this once a year. It's the annual facility tour, and it's generally it is a day, but it's good. The tours themselves usually wrap up around lunchtime. You start with breakfast and you eat what the kids eat, and you go through and you tour the different facilities. You don't look at everything, every nook and cranny. You look at specific things. It's an opportunity to highlight some of the great things you hear about, and then you can see it. It's an opportunity to see some of the projects that you pay for, and you want to see those. In some cases, these are your projects you're hearing about. Here's a need. Keep this on your radar, so you can physically see that. But you generally spend, 35, 40 minutes at each building, and then after you eat lunch, then you have the opportunity to go shadow a couple of teachers. And you can spend 30 minutes in one building, 30 minutes in another building, and you can actually see them interacting with the kids in that sense. And then you get together and you just debrief about what you saw. That's how we structured it in 2 districts that I've been in that have done that. That's just one way to do it. It's not the only way.
like that either. Just getting, and that would, if all 7 of us are there.
So
meeting at that,
well, what you're, it is a meeting because you're touring the buildings together. But what happens after you break off to lunch, you and Kelly may go to the primary center for 30 minutes and watch a different teacher. Tony and Susan may go to the IC and each watch a different teacher. And you switch after 30 minutes and go to another. I mean, you have that ability to do that. So
Field trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
With lunch and a vending machine.
It's pretty easier logistically, but it wouldn't be for disruption of the students' whole day to just have 2 mornings that that's done, so it's split and it would be.
If you were to, yeah.
But I don't know, which is, you know.
And we don't have to figure it out tonight. I just wanted to bring it up to get everybody thinking on it so that if you have an idea to what that looks like, that we can put something together for that.
I think if you were to, kind of what you're talking about, if you were to do, probably want to do it in 3 groups though. To have, because as long as you don't get to 4 people, you can come in, see, and then at the next board meeting, you can talk, you can debrief that. 4 is a quorum.
I just, want to be mindful of not being disruptive of teachers and students too, though, so. I'd be on the table.
Well, I'll tell you, if you go to the high school, Stuart's going to want you to come in and hear the band play, and the kids would love playing for you. So.
Superintendent's report.
All right, I've got a couple of items here. Ashley has been working really hard with the building principals, with getting teachers trained to give the state assessment here over the next month and a half. Things are going to go well, I believe, in terms of the process we have in place. I think it's important to go over the performance level descriptions. And this is the piece that often gets misinterpreted, misunderstood, because KSDE's explanation of the score breakdowns are tied towards post-secondary success. They're not written, and we're never intended to be grade level. And that's what gets misinterpreted by the public. We're always used to grade level. You're used to letter grades, and so when you've got a rubric that's talking about post-secondary success projections, that's where individuals, I think, get confused. A level 1 says that there's a limited ability to understand, math concepts or language knowledge and skills for post-secondary success. The STEM for a level 2 is the student shows basic ability to understand and use those skills for post-secondary success. A level 3 is effective ability to understand and use those skills and knowledge for post-secondary success. And a 4 is excellent. And so when you hear statements of, if you're only successful if you're a 3 or a 4, that's not true. What we're saying, basic is still successful. Basic is you're able to function, you're able to be successful in a post-secondary manner. And so this is the piece. The feds look at 3 and 4, but where the state's saying is no, the state is saying post-secondary success starts at level 2. So when we look at our results, we're looking at levels 2 and above. From 21, our scores in math was 75% at 2 and above. In 22, math was at 76.4, 2% and above, at level 2 and above. For ELA, 20 and 21, 76, and in 22, we were at 76 at a level 2 and above. When I hear people say we're failing kids, that's not true. Something that needs to be understood is 18% of our students are identified as students with disabilities. All right, but by nature, they already have that challenge. They're not failing. We've got kids within our district, 30-some% are considered at risk. And these are factors that are outside of their control that impact them before they even get to school, before they can start that learning process. They're not failing. We're not failing. We have teachers working incredibly hard. And so as we go through the state assessment process, we need to understand that we've got people working very hard. We cannot sit here and say that only 3s and 4s are successful, because level 2 is as well. So as the teachers go into this, I'm excited about what's to come. And we've been doing this through a pandemic where their schedule has been thrown out of whack, out of kilter. I'm excited with the new material that we've got coming our way. We should have, has it landed on our dock yet, or is it coming this week, Ashley?
I'm sorry.
The ELA materials that we purchased.
It's supposed to come tomorrow.
Supposed to come tomorrow. So the cool part about this is we can begin this process of providing that professional development, get the resources in the hands of teachers, and get them ready for next year. So good stuff happening there. The second thing that I wanted to report on, and I've put this in writing. I wanted to make sure that I didn't go off on any rabbit holes or whatever, bird walks, as my dad would say. So some of this will be, I wanted to make sure I got my thoughts down. But I think it's important for everyone, and I'm not just speaking here towards the board, but I also want our staff to know this. I want our community to know this, and in a way, I'm not talking to the camera or breaking the fourth wall there, but I feel a need to say some of this stuff. So here we go. And so this report will be a legislative update. If you've been following the activities in Topeka, and if you haven't, I suggest you do, you'll know that the legislative decisions leading up to the passage by the House of House Sub Senate Bill 83 by the House. It's legislation that's simply designed to divert public dollars to private schools via vouchers or otherwise referred to as education savings accounts. The notion that ESAs or vouchers provide school choice for parents is a fallacy. And to be honest, parents have had a choice to enroll students in other schools, whether that's public or private. What this is really about is subsidy. It provides private schools with tax dollars, public tax dollars, by creating a mechanism for state funding, our tax dollars, to pay for a parent's personal decision to attend a private school. Please know, I have no issues with the parent's decision to go to a private school. I just don't believe it's a taxpayer's responsibility to pay for that choice. Furthermore, it's important to recognize that the admission of a private school is not a parent's choice. It's the private school's choice. The narrative that ESAs or vouchers provide parents with options is misleading. If a child has a disability, is a struggling learner, or not at a specific athletic level, there's no requirement for the private school to accept the student. If the student with the disability is accepted, there is no requirement for the school to provide IEP services. Private schools have the ability to pick and choose. They can sort and select. It's my belief that House Sub SB 83 includes an attempt to purchase teacher and special education support while at the same time reduces administration and school board leadership. The legislation, if approved, would require 50% of any new money to be allocated to teacher salary increase. I want to increase teacher salary as much as anyone. However, that decision taken away from local control and given to legislators in Topeka through legislation seems like the start of heavy government. The predetermined nature of this legislation also limits the district's ability to provide classified staff with raises, increase staffing, and add additional programming. Additionally, and unless I've missed something, the special education dollars are only stipulated for 1 year, whereas the private school allocation does not appear to have an expiration date. Again, the requirement of 50% of new money and $74 million of SPED allocation for 1 year sounds like a purchase of support than a long-term solution. Additionally, stripping away local control of the budget would be catastrophic for school districts, especially those in rural communities. I have specific concerns with transparency regarding House Sub SB 83. The development of this bill was done in a rapid period of time as part of a gut-and-go effort. In this case, it was a bill that was approved in the chamber of the Senate and completely stripped and repackaged as something entirely different in the chamber of the House. Very little time was provided for the public to learn of the changes and speak for or against the bill. It occurred over spring break when families and staff were most likely focused on other things. The way the bill finally passed in the House was of concern as well. A call of the House was declared in which a member of the House went suddenly missing and the doors of the chamber were locked. Nobody was allowed to leave until the representative was found and all representatives had voted. This allowed the representatives were locked in the room to begin the process of whipping votes. This is where legislators are convinced to change their votes. Once 63 yay votes were made possible through whipping, the missing legislator was suddenly found, and the necessary 64th yay vote was cast to move forward. This is interesting because the preliminary tally was 60 to 64 against the bill. A lot of effort went into forcing this legislation through in 3 hours. Lastly, think about where private schools exist. They exist in areas where those attending private schools have the means. Think about location and social economic situations. Most rural communities do not have access to the private school option. Also, there's the ability for micro schools to be established. This is a new term in that sense. Micro schools can teach what they want, when they want, and if they want, because there's no accountability. A school could pop up overnight, receive the funding from the state, and not have to show any evidence of academic growth or progress. This sounds like a dangerous recipe for the misuse of public funds, the funds that, again, were diverted from public schools. I encourage families and staff to pay attention to what is taking place in Topeka. Decisions are not being made to improve our community or schools. House Sub SB 83 was promoted by one legislator as a way of returning to the school days of the 1800s. Keep in mind that this time is when the highest level of education for many was an 8th grade education. Students were also responsible for teaching students. There is no requirement for a teaching license in this version of a micro school. In essence, House Sub SB 83 includes zero accountability with our hard-earned tax dollars while diverting the funds from our schools to private schools. Our community continues to be left to make up the financial difference as the state statute still requires 92% SPED funding, which currently isn't being met. The state treasurer would also oversee the education savings account vouchers. To me, this signals that the intent is not really about what's best for kids, but it's about money. More importantly, the research on ESAs and vouchers show very little academic impact of student success. So, why is this legislation being considered? There's a narrative being promoted that Kansas schools are failing. Think about the recognitions that we had tonight. Think about the information shared regarding state assessments tonight. We focus on the academics, social, emotional, and behavioral, athletic, and artistic successes of our students. We are not failing kids. I encourage those out there to contact their legislators and make their voice heard. So that's the legislative update.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin.
You bet.
Well said. All right. Anyone want to add anything?
Very, very comprehensive. Thank you. I pick my moments when I post things on social media, but I'm not going to do the whole thing. But institutions are not perfect. But when we think about what's best for kids, and meaning all kids, we usually will get it right more often than we get it wrong. And so, thank you, board members, for all that you do, and thank you, Mr. Dodge, for. I know legislative updates that's not an easy gig of superintendent, but people need to know about it, and then they can do without what they will. Executive session. I move we enter into executive session with Mr. Dodge. Does Nate come in for this too? No? Okay. With Mr. Dodge to discuss negotiations pursuant to the exception for negotiations as related to personnel under COMA. Excuse me. And the open meeting will resume. Can we get 2 minutes for that? Yes. Never mind. I retract that. And that's okay. Let's call a recess. And when we get back, then we'll do it. It's just really cool. It's been a lot. All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting back to order. I move we enter into executive session to discuss negotiations pursuant to the exception under COMA for non-elected personnel. And the open meeting will resume. And we are entering that executive session with Mr. Dodge. And the open meeting will resume at, which time? It's 9:27.
Even 10 minutes, 5 minutes? 5 minutes.
Okay, 9:35. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Okay.
We're being very.
Everybody's laughing at each other.
Yeah.
Still, I just know it.
I had a resting face.
All right, I move we enter into executive session for the purposes of superintendent evaluation under the exception under coma for personnel or evaluation reviews for superintendent, for non-elected personnel, sorry. And the open meeting will resume 9:50. If we get done early, we can come back out. Second, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. So, yeah. Okay. Move we enter into executive session for the purposes of superintendent evaluation pursuant to the justification under comma for non-elected personnel, and the open meeting will resume at 10 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Thank you.
carbon monoxide poisoning.
All terrible ways to die.
I was on the train to Chicago. I was, when I had service, was watching videos on Blackstones.
Oh, grills. Yeah.
I feel like I need to investigate that.
Yeah.
All right. So we will come back to that next meeting with our, we'll touch base with all that. Okay, we need to approve the personnel report. We have two things we need to approve.
I move we approve the personnel report.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. 6-0. And then we have the certified staff longevity benefit. Kelly, would you like the honors?
Sure, I move that we approve the longevity benefit plan as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. And then just need adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Phil moved, Kelly seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Meeting adjourned, 10:02. Thanks, everybody.